Okay, Commissioners, if you'd like to grab your seats, I'd like to call the meeting of the Government Operations Meeting to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda, we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Leonetti, supported by Commissioner Kraft. Please vote. Item passes. The agenda is approved. Item number 4, we need a motion to approve the minutes. Moved by Duje, supported by Sauger. All in favor of approving the minutes, please vote. The minutes are passed. Item number 5, public participation. 5 minutes maximum per speaker. Anyone from the public wish to address this body? Last time, anyone from the public wish to address this body? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda and go on to appointment interviews for candidates to the Community Mental Health Board. Today, we are interviewing candidates who are interested in serving in the Macomb County Mental Health Services Board. Each person filled out an application submission, which is included in everyone's agenda packet. All who applied have been invited to attend this meeting. Today's interview opportunity offers a chance for commissioners to put a face with a name and to ask any questions that commissioners may have on reviewing the applications. Candidates will be invited to come to the podium to introduce themselves, let us know why they wanted to apply for this position, and provide any other information they wish. The CMH board is a vital part of county government. This board is charged with overseeing our Community Mental Health Services Department, which provides a comprehensive array of mental health services appropriate to address the needs of the primary consumers located within Macomb County. There's a 12-member board. There are 4 upcoming vacancies due to term expiration. By statute, members on this board are expected to be representative of providers of mental health services, recipients, family members, or consumers of mental health services, agencies and occupations having a working involvement with mental health services, and the general public. As with all Macomb County boards and commissions, appointees must reside in Macomb County and be at least 18 years of age. Members attend at least 2 meetings a month, which are held on the 2nd Wednesday and 4th Friday at 6 p.m. here in this boardroom. So with that, I want to again thank the individuals for coming here today. The first candidate is Robert Bloomingburg. Welcome, Robert. Thank you for coming today. And we just want to ask you, do you meet the qualifications for this position? Do you understand what's expected if you are selected to serve? And if you could just tell us your motivation for wanting to serve on the CMH board.
As far as your questions, yes, sir. And thank you for the opportunity to make a difference. A few months ago, the thought of being here interviewing for a member of the board on the Macomb County Community Mental Health never crossed my mind. Now, being a board member is one of the most important things to me. I choose to live in Macomb County. Even though I have lived in other cities and other countries, I choose Macomb County, and I choose my hometown of Warren. My neighbors are compassionate, hardworking, rugged individuals. I love my neighbors. I love Macomb County. It's a safe place and a comfortable place to live. And I've never been up here to notice that there's a really great view of the waterfront from up here. There really is. And Kennedy gave a speech down here in 1960, and Macomb County is 200 years old this year. Is that correct? That's awesome. Another benefit of living in Macomb County is Macomb County Community Mental Health. My brother is 67. He was born with cerebral palsy. The doctors never really expected him to live 6 months. They never expected him to read and write. And now he's 67, and because of the support that he receives through Macomb County Community Mental Health, he has been able to retire from ARC Services of Macomb County after 35 years of working there because he receives community living support from Macomb County Community Mental Health. Because of his community living support, my brother's quality of life has been amazing, and his life expectancy has been extended. The people that work at Community Mental Health are absolutely amazing, wonderful, and kind-hearted humans. With the blessing of this commission over the years, the staff at Community Mental Health have developed Macomb County Community Mental Health into a shining beacon of hope. Can you hear me? Am I coming across articulately?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been a true feather in the cap of the county. In fact, the light has shined so bright that board membership has become sometimes either a stepping stone or a tool bag for the politically motivated. I am not here for politics. I am here for the consumers of community mental health and the beautiful people of Macomb County Community Mental Health that have worked hard to build it to be the shiny beacon of light that it is. And for the hardworking tax-paying citizens of this county who choose to live in Macomb County. These citizens naturally expect a mental health safety net. The administration of the mental health safety net naturally falls into the hands of the local government. Macomb County Community Mental Health is a cutting-edge provider of choice-driven, person-centered planning. We all know that this really is overall the proper choice, and from a human and from a fiscal perspective, this is a proper choice. It is safe to say that because of rebasing, there are problems at Macomb County Community Mental Health. I know there are a variety of solutions, and maybe there is not just one solution, but maybe multiple solutions are needed. What is the plan of action here? I am not sure I have heard an articulate solution from the county. As a member of the board of directors, I will not only articulate the county's position, but I will crusade to make it happen. Do we choose to force the downtrodden of Macomb County to endure the harsh realities of having their safety net yanked from underneath from them and their families? Or do we choose to be the shining beacon of hope that many constituents like my brother desperately need? My brother's an amazing man. Nobody expected him to live 67 years, and all he really wants to do is give back. Marv knows him. He knows he's a kind-hearted man, and he doesn't even really, even though he's mentally competent, he doesn't even really recognize that the people that help him actually get paid. He calls them his volunteer staff. And it's just because he's so kind-hearted, he just expects everybody else to be as kind-hearted as he is, okay? And the same kind-heartedness holds true with the staff at Macomb County Community Mental Health. Macomb County is the springboard for many in the health services industry. There are so many bright, young-minded individuals entering the workforce who have dreams of instilling change and making a difference in people's lives. And Macomb County is an epicenter for that in Michigan, and I think in the country. I would have to say, as well as a staff of the sports coordinators and the case managers at Macomb County Community Mental Health. These people, they don't like the caseworkers and the case managers. They didn't go to school to walk into people's lives and to tell them that their benefits have been cut. And that's what's happened over the last few years. And I know that there's a lot of rebasing going on and a lot of things that can be done to change it or maybe change it. As a member of Macomb County Community Mental Health Board of Directors, I would like to articulate whatever the board here would like to see happen with community mental health. It's safe to say that there's a crisis, and it's safe to say that there's a lot of solutions. And it's also safe to say that there's a lot of people in Macomb County that love to live here and raise their families here. And they dream of having a safety net for their children. And so if you're, I don't know the autism syndrome issues, but can you imagine, I'm sure there's people in here that have autism in their family. 1 in every 60 children has an autism spectrum issue. Can you imagine having a child and then your child's born and you're raising your child, and the next thing you know that they have communication issues with people in their environment and the issues that they have to go through? Macomb County Community Mental Health does a really great job of addressing this issue, and by doing this, they save untold millions of community living support hours in the future by transitioning people with autism spectrum disorders into a functional environment. It saves untold millions of dollars in adult community living support. And so these are ideas that I would like to see Macomb County Community Mental Health expound to. One thing that I've noticed in my short time witnessing things within the county and community mental health is that the rebasing has so dragged down on the members of the department that they don't have any more creativity, and there's no time to actually do things. We're just trying to catch up instead of going forward. And I'd like to see the community mental health department move forward, and as a member of the board, I would like to facilitate that forward change. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. Speakers, did you want to speak? Chair Smith?
Thank you. Thank you for applying, and thank you for coming here today. Mm-hmm. You mentioned something at the beginning when you were talking that 3 months ago or 6 months ago, I don't remember exactly, mm-hmm. That you would have not saw yourself in this position. Correct. But you really didn't say what changed your mind to put you into this, all of a sudden wanting to be in this position.
Because of my brother receives community living support, and he's received it for about 10 years. 6 months ago, with his authorization request, he was denied a certain portion of his community living support. And because of that, I helped him go through the process of a local disputes resolution and a Medicaid fair hearing. And in the process, I discovered a lot of issues. And I don't really want to blame any individual. I understand that I would really like to see 13 people on the board, because I'd like to work with all the 12 members that are on the board right now and myself and actually facilitate change. There's a lot of issues with inside the functions of community mental health that I don't think any one person created the issues. They are just a result of the funding cuts. And so my brother had services for 4.5 years that were consistent, and then they were cut. And in the process, we had to go through a local disputes resolution and a Medicaid fair hearing. We won the Medicaid fair hearing with the help of Lisa Lapine from ARC Services. She provided her services as a pro bono attorney, and she's done this with several hundred, I understand, people who have gone through Medicaid fair hearings. And now, I understand that the county has to do something to make up for the budget cuts. It's true. There's nothing you can do about it. I just don't know that I would have done it this way, and I don't know that maybe in the future things can't be done a little bit differently. My feeling is that the county would just rather see everything stay copacetic, absorb the changes, and just go ahead with things the way they are. So the county has taken a $40 million cut over the last 4 years. And so do we just say we'll accept a $180 million budget, or do we say we want to go back up to the $220 million budget that we had before? And now from a purely a board member perspective, and you look at the numbers, you don't recognize that 1 million hours a year of community living support have been cut. And that's just in community living support hours. That's a lot of workers. That's a lot of hours and so these are hours that people already received for years. It's not things that we're asking more for. It's not like my brother was asking for additional services. He had been receiving these services for a long time, okay? And so I recognize that the county's in a pickle, and I recognize that the people that need the support need the support. And so what I would like to like bridge the gap. I would have to think that I have the energy, and I'm not trying to say I'm the greatest person in the world, but I have the drive, the energy, and the motivation to actually like make this happen. I would like to see if community mental health should be at $220 million in 2015 or 2016 dollars, they should really be at 230 or 240 or 250 million. And if you look at the crises that arise all the time, you can't sit behind a table and discuss and try to like manage things that come up like school shootings or drug epidemics. You just can't put that into a budget. And so there has to be, if there isn't budget constraints already, it gives the county the opportunity to focus its creative energies on real crises, like things that could arise, like a school shooting or the drug epidemic. And Macomb County is really unique in that, you know, maybe it's because Mark Hackle was the sheriff, and we are like law enforcement minded county that we haven't had these issues. Or maybe we've just gotten lucky. Now, going to meetings, I know that there's a lot of initiatives within community mental health to solve these problems. And so I would like to see that the county doesn't have to worry about the cuts that they've had to endure, but instead they can worry about making sure that there isn't any school shootings or that the drug epidemic, at least within our county, can be handled.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Normally you don't, when things are going well, you don't have to pay much attention to them, but when things go wrong is when you kind of find out what's really behind the curtain, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Commissioner Toko?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Bloomberg. It sounds like you have a lot of knowledge about the community mental health system. Do you have that knowledge and experience from any place other than your brother? I mean, were you in that field?
No, ma'am. I thank you for having me here. As much as I appear to have knowledge, it's really just what I've absorbed in the last 3 months, going to meetings and researching things on the internet, looking up articles in the newspaper, attending meetings, just absorbing information. I was fortunate enough. Mr. Kinch invited me to the legislative forum last month that he hosted, and I absorbed a lot of knowledge, and I've talked to a lot of people within the structure of Macomb County Community Mental Health. Some I've offended, some I've gotten information from. I think those who I've offended, I've kind of patched things over with. So.
Okay. Are you familiar with the differences between an authority and a CMH?
Ideally, no. There's certain things that I don't understand. Like, all right, so like community mental health. What's the difference? You tell me. What's the difference between the?
No, I'm just asking you, like, where your knowledge is on this issue. So if you, it's not a quiz. I'm just trying to.
Like, Macomb County Community Mental Health is one of 11 different agencies within the state of Michigan that provide community mental health assistance. And so what's the difference between an authority and an agency? Is Macomb County Community Mental Health an authority?
No.
Okay.
Okay. And then
I'm a quick learn, though.
Okay. That's obvious.
And I'm not afraid.
And do you indicated you have the energy, motivation, and drive. Do you have the time commitment that's necessary?
Yes, ma'am. I'm semi-retired. I really, I used to do a lot of different things, but I'm allergic to just about everything on the planet. I have celiac disease. I can't really come in contact with any like building materials and stuff like that. So seeing as I was once a pizzeria owner and a caterer, and I had a painting business as well, I just decided to become semi-retired. And I don't really need to be rich. I just kind of want to make a difference. And I've been doing that in my brother's life. And so this kind of just appeared on the horizon. And so I would like to take this under my wing and make whatever difference that I can. I'm offering my services as free as a volunteer.
Okay, thank you. We're glad to have your application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Robert? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for coming here. Next candidate is Marilyn Brown. Hello, Marilyn. Welcome.
Hello. As you can see from my application, I have served on the Community Mental Health Board for 18 years.
Wow.
My family situation has not changed. I'm still the parent of 2 adult children, one with chronic mental illness and one who is developmentally disabled. My 2 adult children will always require community services. As a parent, I can tell you that our consumers do grow older. They just don't grow up. Parents grow older and they die. One of the highlights of Macomb's community mental health system has been our community living support services. These services enabled our consumers to live life to their fullest capabilities in our community. As you know very well from Mr. Bloomingburg's presentation and the news, due to the state's Medicaid redistribution, our CLS services have been severely cut. As a member of the board, I've heard countless families tell us of the hardships they have faced due to these cutbacks. I've heard countless providers tell us of the hardships they've faced. And when you get to know your CLS workers and you hear how their hours are cut, you feel for them too. You just don't always feel for your own family member. You see how this has impacted everyone in the community. Those of us who have lost our services, and my family is one of them, are left to fend for ourselves when it comes to providing for our loved ones. As consumers age and as parents age, this becomes an impossible situation. The fear of what will happen to a loved one when family is no longer available is very real. For the well-being of our entire community, our funds need to be restored. It's an important thing that families of consumers be represented on the board. And I believe that my knowledge of and experience with community mental health services is helpful and qualifies me for that position. So thank you for considering me for reappointment.
Any commissioners with any questions, comments for Marilyn? I have one question. What are your thoughts on this industry becoming, there's talk from the state of community mental health being privatized. I'm concerned about this industry going into a for-profit industry. I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about workers in this industry being paid less than what they are now, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
My thoughts are I would like Macomb County to remain the way it has been. I really would. I would like it to stay the same.
Okay. Commissioner Toko, did you want to speak on this? I have you on the list.
Yes. What do you mean it stay the same? So do you have a proposal for how we manage the same amount with less money that we have coming in?
I think we need to let our legislators know that that money should be allotted to us. When they did the rebasing, they did not give us our fair share. They look at the money across the state, but they did not allow for the number of consumers that we have in this county. They really didn't. I mean, we are not getting the amount, our fair share to serve the people that we have to serve in this county.
So when you say stay the same, do you mean, are you opposed to moving to an authority?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? Any other questions, commissioners? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming here today, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Next is Joan Flynn. Hi, Joan.
Good day, Commissioners. Joan Flynn, 13810 Trafalgar, Warren, Michigan. I want to thank you, too, for letting mental health use your chambers for our meetings. They are very impressive, and it's really good to have someplace where people can come and listen to us. What I want to do before I give my little talk, I want to read our mission statement, mental health mission statement. Macomb County community mental health is guided by the values, strengths, and informed choices of the people we serve. We provide quality service which promotes recovery, community participation, self-sufficiency, and independence. And that's what I live by, that motto. I'm sorry to hear of all the cuts also, but we still have to go on. I want to tell you that I serve as vice chair of the Community Mental Health Board. Our chair is Commissioner Kathy Vosberg. I also am vice chair of Programs and Budget, and our commissioner is Phil Kraft. Now, recipient rights, I am chair, and my vice chair is Linda Bush. Now we all work together, and we have a good working relationship because we're under a good executive director, John Kinch, who has put out legislation meetings, which some of you were there. I know you were there, Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Brown. I don't know if, no, I had to look to see for sure. But I also have been appointed on Crossroads. I serve on Crossroads, which is a recovery program, and it gets jobs for people that are in recovery out in the community. Now, Warren has given them 2 jobs. We have 2 at the county, mental health. And then the tea room, I don't know if you know the tea room in Roseville. They hired one of these people that have recovered from mental health, not fully, but. So I am very active on the board, and I intend to be. We have a well-rounded board, and I feel if it's not broke, don't fix it. So please give me your assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for, I want to say Commissioner Flynn. Any questions for Joan, Commissioner Toko?
Thank you, Joan, for being here, and thank you for your past years of service. I'm trying to get a feel for where the board is on this whole discussion and debate over authority versus remaining as we are. Do you have a position on that?
Sure. You know, in the county, in the state of Michigan, there's 80 community services, 80 commissions, and 2 were the only ones that are not an authority, and 1 other which I don't know. All the rest are authorities. Now, our executive director wanted to go out and bring in a person to just talk about being an authority, and I think the whole world got upset. Now, there is nothing wrong if these other counties want to be. But we have been under the auspice of Macomb County Board of Commissioners. You are the final deciding vote. Even if we, should I say, even if the commissioners wanted to be an authority, they couldn't without your support. So, I mean, why are people upset about this authority? And sometimes you have to take, maybe outsourcing. You might have to go buy different things from somebody besides a union worker. But sometimes you have to get a better price. I'm not for an authority. I'm content. But if we can save money somewhere to help our constituents, what has been taken away, then I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, thanks for coming here today, Joan.
Thank you. And
Next.
thank you again for letting us use your
Thanks.
chambers.
Next is the infamous Commissioner Kraft. The mic
Thank-
is yours, Phil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Should I go down to the podium? You want me to head down
You're
over
fine. You're good there.
I thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for coming today that are applying for this position. I'm one of the newer board members. I've been on board for about 8 months or so, almost a year, taking over for Commissioner Toko, who had to step down. And it has been drinking from a fire hose ever since, to be honest. It has been a great challenge, learning this position, learning being on the Community Mental Health Board. It's been a whirlwind, but I think it's been really great, and it has been very challenging, especially with CMH. When it comes to the budget cuts and things like that, it has been an extremely tough 8 months, but I would be honored to serve for another term. I think we've done a lot of work considering the challenges that we've faced. As Commissioner Flynn said, in the 8 months that I've been here, a few months ago, I was elected to serve as the chair of Program and Budget Committee, and I've been happy to do so ever since. And the items we've brought up, as Commissioner Flynn said, and I know Commissioner Toko is going to bring this up about the authorities, just to get a study done has been a challenge. And before you ask your question, Commissioner Toko, where I stand on the authority or privatization, I'm up for whatever the best way possible is to serve our consumers. And I've talked to Donna about this. I've talked to John Kinch about this. If we can find a way to serve our consumers the best that we can for the dollars that we have, that is what I want to do. If it's an authority, if it's what we're doing now, if it's something else that I don't even know about yet, that's the avenue I want to go, because at the rate we're going with what the state is doing, these dollar amounts are getting less and less every year, and it's becoming more and more of a challenge every year. And what we're doing is we are going to the legislature. We are asking them for dollars to help recoup what we've lost. Last year was $5 million. This year we're trying for $7.5 million, because the $12.5 would help to make us whole in a sense. I say that in a sense because it wouldn't make us whole. We've actually lost $40 million. And that money is cutting the services of the people that we're there to serve. So when Commissioner Mijak was talking about, you know, whether you're primary or secondary or general public, I guess I fall into the general public category, because I'm just somebody that cares, I guess. And I'm in a unique position because I am a commissioner. I also work for a state representative. So I'm kind of in an in-between area, I guess, between the CMH board, between this board, and between the state legislature. So I would be honored to serve again for another term if the commissioners would see fit, and I welcome any questions.
Questions, commissioners? You have one? Commissioner Toko? Yes, okay, I think you answered Commissioner Toko's questions. Seeing no one on the list, thanks. Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You do?
And it was brought up during somebody's discussion that the director's contract was just renewed, and it didn't come to this board. Is that something that is going to be coming to this board?
I don't, honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know we approved it at CMH and it passed full board. I'm not sure if the next step is to come here or if it's just in place, to be honest with you. I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions for Commissioner Kraft, go on to the next candidate, Brian Negovan. How you doing, Brian? Good to see you.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be seen. Thank you so much. Pleasure to come in and speak about it. As you can see from my resume, I've been on the board for a while. I've had many different jobs in the community, and I won't go over that because I want to take some time to truly speak about what's going on. Since I became on this board, the way I found out about it was I'm a union rep. Had a facility that was on Groesbeck that had a person lost a hand on the job. And I was dealing with the crisis center and some of the training I had. They did the training on that, and I knew who to call. They came out to the facility and did a debriefing. And they did it for both sides, because when it comes down to what a traumatic industry issue is, it affects everybody. Doesn't matter what side of the fence they are, doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what their race is. You got somebody to work there and their hand falls off and you see someone push the button, you say he caused the problem, lost a hand, they call the ambulance, went to the wrong place and everything else. All this confusion went on. They were at each other's throats, not only trying to deal with the fact of the nightmares, picking a hand up, dirty rag and everything else. The Community Health Crisis Center came out there and did the debriefing. They sat down in a group and talked to them and explained to this stuff, how to go through this. It stopped actually people hating each other or out to really get into a massive fight because they were mad at somebody. And the short and the story up was they were mad at the person who pushed the button. Reality is the person that got his hand cut off was behind the machine. You could not see it. And what it was is a slitter for flat steel. And the steel was tangled up, so he thought he'd help the guy out because he's on the other side and don't see it. It's not feeding through the machine, so he went over there and wiggled it. His hand went in there. The guy pushed the button, cut his hand off. Didn't even know he got his hand cut off until 5 minutes later. So the people that were around that area blaming him for this. And then they blamed the company for this. But the reality of the situation, it was an accident, but the crisis team came in there and really diffused a lot of the situations that could have happened and continue on to help. Then I got on the board, and I've seen what this community health board does through substance abuse and a lot of things throughout the community that the community is unaware of. Our legislators don't even know about it. And quite frankly, I'll be honest, the board members at the time weren't aware of what's going on in mental health, for how they work with the community, how they deal with the people that are mentally challenged, their family, and the issues that come up. That time we weren't doing cuts. State wasn't cutting us or nothing else. Things were going good. All of a sudden they had to do massive cuts because people lost their jobs. So they made the cuts where they had to do. We endured through those cuts. There was changes that we made through the board, through the staff, through the leadership, which is fantastic. Went through this and made these cuts. One variation that came up, I'm speeding up now. The state decided they're going to consolidate mental health boards. I believe at the time there was 18. I can't remember exactly, 18 or 19 boards throughout the counties. They went down to 16, but they were going to go to 15. They were going to take Macomb County and merge us with St. Clair County. Their action was we had to go to St. Clair County because we didn't meet the statutes of what they said to be a standalone mental health board. Wayne County was because of the numbers, Oakland County because of the numbers. We had the numbers too, but their whole pretense was we need to go to St. Clair because we could do a better job when we merged the two counties together. The staff and the leadership put together to answer the state every question they asked of what we were defiant on or deficient on. When they read the report, we actually were better off than Wayne and Oakland County, and they could not merge us because we met every criteria they wanted to do to us and above it. So we stayed be a standalone in a community base. I've also sat through audits where they come in for the CARF and different, I don't know, all the different people, different organizations come in to make accreditation to Macomb County for the mental health board. Every one of them, there's always something wrong. Doc for this, paperwork this. But the one that really stuck out the most was for the children, who are young adults. A woman came in from out of state, and she's up in her age, she was getting ready to retire. In the audit, when she did the review to the audit to the board and to what they found out, she flat out said that, and I think this was maybe within the last 4 years. She started saying she's never seen a staff that went out of their way, or leadership went out of their way to help family members above and beyond what it calls for what they're dedicated to do. Above what, outside the realm of their own. There's consumers that needed more assistance. They went out and made the phone calls and directed them where to get it, where they didn't have to do it. They could just say, well, that's what it is, and walk away. This woman broke down in tears while she was giving a report, and her answer was, I'm an old woman, I can cry. But she's never seen anybody so dedicated for staff and a leadership to the consumers. She's not the only one who done it. She's the only one who cried. Every time they come in and done that, they've always said about that. They literally went and asked if they could use our, help me out with a word here, program to take it to other community houses out of state and bring them in to find out how it's being done. That's one of the things I'm on this board for, is to keep that tradition going on that. Thirdly, the consumers. We are the only board in the state of Michigan for the appeals. If there's something that goes down with the process, if there's charges, whatever it is, they have a right to appeal it. We're the only board that actually sees them face to face. They have an opportunity to come in and plead their case. And we may not be able to change it, but during the discussion, we find out other issues that could be going around that is a violation that we can go out and fix that we're unaware of and work with it. And for one that brought up, there's one that was severely challenged and wheelchair, not a whole lot of motivation. He could speak. He sat in front of 12 people that he's never known before and talked about his case, and it took a while to get it out because he was nervous. You don't just walk in a room, 12 people you don't know, and talk to if you have everything for you. If you have challenges, it's even tougher yet. And if you have a speech impediment, it's even tougher yet. We sat there and listened to what the issues were, and his last words were, I know you may not be able to do nothing about it, but at least I could come in and talk to somebody that listened to me. That is huge. That's huge for the dignity of the person that comes in the room. But yet, the state's trying to say, well, you don't have to go that extra far. Let them send a letter down to the state. We'll tell them there's nothing. Put a letter in the mail. These are about human beings and their family members. It made me, now these cuts, they've been going on for quite a long time. People, residents, organizations, United Way, who I worked for, they didn't know about the cuts. When I started talking about what they were trying to do, when I mentioned the consolidation and everything else and going on, I said, you know what, well, that's not our issue. Let me tell you what's going to happen. When they lose their funding, who are they going to call? They're going to call 211, which the mental health board isn't 211, but the mental health board or the different departments are in there. They won't be there no more because they don't have the funding. They're going to ask United Way where to get help from. Then you're going to go out and ask somebody, give me $1 billion so I can take care of the people that should have been taken care of already. That should not happen. When I talked to legislators about this issue, they were unaware of it because everybody's got a lot to do. They have staff members that show up to meetings. They're not all on every one of the different programs in there. I said, well, I'm not on the mental health board. I'm not on that. I said, but your residents are. You need to get involved to see what's going on. Send your staff in there to see what they're doing to cuts. And they've allocated the money. But the state of Michigan's mental health board won't give us the money they were allocated to. And it's been going on for about 9 years. Now we're down to a point, there's nowhere to take money from. Our administration costs in Macomb County is at 7%. There's not a board in the state of Michigan that is at a 7%. But yet they say that our program's too lucrative. Now what they meant by it is, if I'm somebody who is mentally challenged, and I've been living on my own for 10 years, and somebody comes in as a, let's say, CSL, I think that's the proper term, see how things going, bills paid, if I take medication, if they've showered, if their rooms, their apartment's clean or their house clean, how they get around there, that could be 4 hours a week. And they're living on their own. Now they tell us that person that's been out there, you need to put them in a group home. Because then we won't have to send that person out for 4 hours a week to check on this person. They'll be in a group home with 5 other people, and they're all in a case in this one area, and we can watch them all at one time. But yet what happens is this person loses their individuality. They don't have the freedom what they've been doing because now they lost, I can't go out to one room or another because this is another person's room. That is wrong. When this person's paying for the apartment, it's not the cost of the apartment, it's the cost of the 4 hours for somebody to go check on them. That is wrong. And any way you flip it, and it's not because of this board. It's because of what the state of Michigan does. And it's not because of the legislators, because they don't understand what this program does. It's not only Macomb, it's all mental health boards and substance abuse boards. I could go on for days, but another one I want to talk about. You see the shootings. All over school shootings or the massacre in Vegas. And what's the first thing national media says, or even the President of the United States said? He's mentally ill. There's a problem there. There's a difference between mentally ill or being to a place that you're so upset about something, can't get help, and you snap for that 20 minutes to go do something like that, instead of putting the stagnant says anybody who's mentally challenged is doing that. That is wrong. And we could speak up for that and fight those issues. There's stuff I could talk to you that happened that I won't speak about because of cuts. There's a family that lost daughter, 3 grandchildren, and their father went to jail. That was in our services under general fund, which we got that cut back a while back, which we could pay for general fund for people who didn't have insurance. Begged to get assistance. There was no way we could do it, or the leadership put them anywhere. There was no funding to do it. She came in and spoke to us about that. She said, I tried, I begged you to get help. You know this, you got money, you can only do so much. If you ain't got the money, you can't do nothing about it. She says, how would you feel if you lost 3 grandchildren, a granddaughter, and your son's in jail for doing it? Now this woman she has mental challenges. She has to live with herself every day knowing that happened when she tried to get help. These are the issues this board's been fighting for. And hopefully I can continue fighting for it. But this is one of the best in the nation's mental health county ran. The state of Michigan has one of the best mental health divisions in the nation. When they, and against, we talk about privatizing or going authority, the authority issue is not so much going authority, it's about having an outside contractor when we know our staff can do the same due diligence to find out if it's worth going to authority. But the issue was having it contract out somebody else to go do that. And there's been one board, I'll throw in there, Lakeshore, they actually, because of the cuts, they went to the residents and asked for a millage increase to pay for it. They shouldn't have to ask for a millage increase to pay for their mental health. That's their right. Where's going to be the bottom line? Because it comes back on the county that's going to say, well, we're going to do this because we don't have the money. So the next thing is going to be, well, we're not going to pay for the fire departments and the police officers. We're going to put a millage. So the state does not have to pay for the millage. This is the thinking. It's
like roads, exactly.
I'm sure you all know on the road, the state of Michigan has $1 billion in a rainy day fund. They told us that we can't have as IFO $15 million, which in case we get sued to keep operating, which is under the Constitution, underneath everything there is, we're supposed to have $15 million sitting there in case we get sued. They said we don't need that. Well, then why does the state of Michigan need $1 billion in a rainy day fund? There's no reason for that. And these are the issues that we fight together. And the big difference between an authority and our board is built up for the communities. There are people in the communities, whether they work, whether whatever jobs, county commissioners, union members, residents, they're county. They make the vote. And the question was, it did not come across the board about hiring the CEO because it's not in the way it's written. We hire this CEO. The board does that. And we explain to you that's what we do. And when Hackle took over county executor, he put I'm sure everybody has seen the statutes, who falls where and who's going to be in there. Big issue was we weren't there. He says, you are. No, we're not. We are standalone. We will report to you what we're doing, but you don't tell us what to do because we are a community board. We're based from the community. You cannot tell us what to do. Took him almost a year, but he finally said, well, can you send me the reports so I can see them? So we do. And this, I mean, we have the best community mental health board and staff and leadership and the groups we work with. It's outstanding. And I have personal pride myself to talk about it anytime I can, to anywhere about it. And I just came back from the United States Capitol, where I'm from the UAW. We went on there for a week long. We went on the Hill in discussion and the knowledge and spread out. And I found out it's not only the state of Michigan, it's all over. But we crafted together to go into the legislators, no matter what side they were on. We went to our representatives to explain to them the cuts to mental health in the nation. Preferably in their own. We had more information that was brought out so I could do because they sit on the board. And they were dumbfounded from the staff because they were trying to stop from closing the government down that day. To what truly goes on and what's going on, and so we will pass it on. I've received 2 phone calls back from the legislators, and believe it or not, they're Republicans. Can we sit down and talk more about it? Because I didn't realize this was going on. And that's the quiet diamond in the rough for us. We need to explain it, even though people don't want to understand mentally challenged people or the difficulties, substance abuse, because it's not my household. But any day it can be. From Alzheimer's disease to somebody getting hooked on heroin at any age group or prescription, it can hit us at any time. So I'm done. I don't know if this is an interview of me preaching, so I apologize.
Brian, thank you very, very much. Certainly you coming here today and talking helps me to understand this more. Before I open it up to speakers, I just have a question. So I'm just curious, you're saying that legislatures don't have an understanding of this? Is that a reason this is happening? Is it a lack of money like roads? Or is it a deliberate attempt to privatize this $3.4 billion industry, which John Kinch talked about a few years ago, which the state government was looking at? I'd like to know your thoughts on that.
It's all of them.
All of the above?
I mean, when I first started, when I started talking to legislators in Macomb County, I became a CAP rep at the region. And I got a call from the Democratic side. It says, we'd like to meet with you, just introduce ourselves and talk about different things. All right. So we sat and met. So there was 6 of them. So they went around and introduced yourself, shake your hands, and okay, what do you want to talk about? What do you mean? You said you want to talk about Macomb County. I had the numbers. I said, look at here. Here's right out of a morgue. 315 people died this year from overdose, accidental overdose. Well, what do you mean? I said, you want to talk about Macomb County? Let's talk about Macomb County. Here's what's going on in the mental health system. Here's the cuts that have been done. Pass them around the paperwork with the facts on it. And he just looked at me and he says, you're serious? Yeah. If you want to talk about Macomb County, talk about Macomb County. If you want to talk about your neighborhood, that's a different thing because you represent your neighborhood, but you also represent Macomb County as a whole because you have to work together. It flicks some switches. Someone started looking into it, and I could name the names, but I'm not going to do that. There's quite a few of them that do understand it now, that are talking to their legislators that they work with and explaining the issues. We've had meetings. John set up meetings that we've gone to Lansing for to talk about the cup. Again, and the board sits right there and says, no, they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong. With a bipartisan group out of Macomb County, we asked questions that the board did not answer right, and then the legislators started asking questions, where'd the money go? Well, they're doing, no, let's see the facts. At the end of the meeting, the legislators flat out told them, you need to come back with the facts to tell us where the money's going, because they couldn't answer the questions. They deviated from every one of the questions why this money was being taken away from us. At the end of it, I had one of the legislators come up to me and he says, you know what? I didn't realize I have an uncle that's mentally challenged. It didn't click to what we're doing until we talked about it. I had no idea. That's the key to it, because they don't realize what's going on, because they have other departments they're working over, overseeing. They can't be everywhere at one time. But they need to have where they can talk and say what are the issues throughout. And that's what's so good about our board. We do. We disagree. We have our arguments. I wouldn't say maybe under the breath we might say something else, but we don't say it to each other's face. But we do work on getting them resolved. And we have many people that come in. You know the most heartbreaking thing about the whole thing is? When the consumers could come up here and stand here where I am at and ask why they're being cut, and it's from the public, and the issues that go on, and this and everything else, and we can't answer them. We can't answer the question, because reality, 90% of them is because we've been cut from the state of Michigan. I personally afterwards says, you know what you need to do? Call your legislator, go to town hall meetings, stand up. We had one of our consumers went down there and testified in front of the legislators when they were doing this, and it affected them when they seen you put a face to it, like you're putting a face to who's running. Those are the key things that we do. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, you did. On the list, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to say Negovan. Am I
Sure.
close? No, how do you pronounce
I'm going
it?
to call a lot of things, but that'll work.
How do you pronounce it?
Negovan.
Negovan. Okay. Just a couple questions, if I may. First one, I see that you're UAW.
Yes.
And I see that you belong to, well, I see that you serve on a lot of committees. United Way Corporation set up Employees Assistance Program, work with the AFL-CIO, United Way Community Service Programs, member of the Policy Committee, Michigan Association of CMM Boards, work with the Michigan U.S. Congress and Senate and Michigan House of Representatives. I got to believe that that's very time-consuming for you, and we appreciate the service that you give. My question is, there were 72 meetings, and you only made 43 of them. So what happened to those other 29 meetings, and why weren't you there?
Well, some of them I can say that there's some things that I have to do for requirement of my job. But let me clarify something. The United Way stuff, I actually worked for United Way at that time. I sat in those boards. I sat there and worked for United Way, and I now participate on phone calls and some of the issues that come up. I've been in March of Dimes. I worked for them for 6 years.
29 meetings we're talking about. You
Yeah,
missed
we're
29.
talking about 29 meetings, absolutely. And I have missed them. And I've been called away to do something. I was in D.C. when meetings were going on. I was on sick leave. I had my knee surgery done. Not this year, 2 years ago, or no, 7 years ago, I missed 3 meetings when I had cancer surgery. I try to make every meeting I can, but time-wise, it'll conflict with what I do. I was in Lansing a few times talking to legislators about issues. I mean, you're right. I missed 29 meetings.
I would like to see, if I may, Mr. Chair, and maybe we can pull up some of the, he's been on 12 years, not only just Brian here, but other members. I'd like to see a list, or at least go back a couple of 2-3 years and see if their attendance records are on the board. And I'd like to see that before I would give out or vote on some of this. But Brian, thank you very much.
No
You're
problem.
very involved, and we appreciate what you do. Thank you. That's all I
problem.
have. Thank you.
Yeah,
On that point, having served on the Community Mental Health Board, there are more than just meetings where you show up and sit here. There are a lot of phone conferences. There are a lot of meetings at the state that I don't think are counted in that.
I don't know if the substance abuse, because I'm a board member that goes to substance abuse meeting. I don't know if that's counted a meeting or going to or not. I don't know.
Right, but there are other things that you do that are not counted as part of the meeting process. So
Yeah.
I don't think we should, I mean, I agree that that's an important number and we can look at that number, but there's also other things that go on and other roles that the members of the board do play. You know, when they show up for these legislative meetings, town halls, those aren't included. When they have conferences, like Brian was talking about when they were going to the state to talk about Macomb being the only standalone. I remember Brian going to Lansing quite frequently, and that wasn't considered a meeting. That was something he did on his time. So there are other components to that I just want you to kind of know about and keep in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, thanks for coming in. Appreciate your passion. I appreciate you educating legislators, commissioners, and people in the public about what's going on with mental health. We get the same problem now with roads. People say, what's going on with our money that goes up to Lansing for roads? I'm like, I try to explain it to them, but I don't know. And the same thing you have going on now with mental health is, people say, why are my cuts coming up? What's going on? And so sometimes I look to Commissioner Kraft and I say, what's going on in Lansing? I mean, I see my dollars going to Lansing, but I don't see anything coming back. But here's the problem, and I guess maybe you can answer it. We do have people, we have a great system here in Macomb, but we're having people now suffering. Do we hold out and wait for Lansing? Is that our best option? I mean, what can we do? I mean, something's got to be done to help these people that aren't getting the funding now. And I'm not advocating at all for an authority, because I'm going to bet, and I bet you can answer this, that those counties that do have an authority are probably suffering the same thing, right? They're suffering the same thing. So it doesn't matter if it's an authority or if it's community-based. Everybody's losing money on mental health.
Yeah, I hope I can. Maybe this will help out too. Like I said, I can talk to tomorrow. But one of the aspects the state did was they allocated the refunding last year, and they said, you know what? Let's spread the money equally. Let's put everybody, if you live up in St. Clair, you're going to get your $10, and if you're out in the Upper Peninsula, you're going to get your $10, and if you live over here, you're going to get $10, and if you live in Macomb County, you're going to get your $10. And I'm exaggerating the amount, but I'm giving you spread the money equally. Well, here's the issue. Macomb, Wayne, and Oakland County, 87% of the people that need assistance live in those kind of counties. So where are you going to need the money at? That's a cut. Yeah. You cut these 3 different counties because you gave other counties, which they could use the money too, but they don't have the consumers that we do. They don't even have a third of the consumers we do. But they made the cuts. But that wasn't a cut. We're making everybody happy because you're all getting the same piece of the pie. Those are some of the things to be to talk about. And yeah, I don't understand why our state needs $1 billion in a general fund. As you brought up the roads, what was their way to do that? Well, let's tax the gas and let's tax your car plates, and we're going to put it towards the roads. Well, that ain't helping. You got the money. What did the legislators do? They had to do an emergency relief for $175 million to fix the roads? Yeah. That's the same thing they're trying to push this into. If you want services, we're going to tax the communities that you're in. You pay for your own services. So if you have the money that can do it in Macomb Township, fine. But if you don't have it in Roseville, you're just not getting the services. And the state ain't going to do it. Well, that's the state's responsibility. I'm not saying the government's got to run everything, but they need to run things like roads, sewer system, water. That's why we got the problem with the contaminated water. Now we got it in Mount Clemens. I mean, I could go on bigger and do it, but that's what they're doing with this system here. They're feeling because there are people that don't have a way to speak up for themselves, we can cut them out first. Because they're not. And this board's been speaking up for it. John and his staff has been speaking up for it, and also the light bulb's going on. We're not an easy route to go to. We push back on everything, and we have the facts to go with it. So what they're doing now, they're trying to go to the other boards and push them over to them. So if they get the other boards, so well, Macomb County's got to come on board because all the other ones did it. They did it in Lakeshore. They passed the millage to pay for mental health service in Lakeshore instead of the state doing the proper funding to keep that running.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners to Brian? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I just want to say, whatever you guys decide, just remember one thing. You have great leadership in Macomb County Mental Health. You have great staff people that care in every one of the divisions, substance abuse, all the way down to case managers. They all care for that, and it's not for what they get paid. It truly is not. You have a great staff, and you ought to take a visit sometime. Come down over to me, or even walk into one of the facilities that do this and talk to them, because you get a whole different light on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Next candidate we have is Lanette Olejniczak. Hi, Lanette. How are you? So we're just, I know you came in a little bit late. We're just asking candidates to come by and tell us a little bit about yourself. Do you meet the qualifications for this position? Do you understand what's expected of you if you are selected to serve, and so on? So the mic is yours, please.
Well, my name is Lanette Olejniczak, and I didn't come with anything prepared, but I'm going to speak to the reasons why I want to be on the Community Mental Health Board. I am a special education teacher. I've been a teacher for 21 years. I currently work right up the street at Seminole Academy. During my 21 years, I've worked in East Detroit schools, I've worked in Pontiac schools, I've worked in Detroit public schools, and the population I work with is special education. So the students in my class have cognitive impairments, the students in my class have learning disabilities. I work with students who have autism and students who are emotionally impaired. So I work with students who are consumers of mental health. I have parents who, you know, a wide array of parents who are, you know, have drug addictions, alcohol addictions, and various other situations. I feel like I am very knowledgeable of mental health services and the ones that are available in our county. And my concern is, as a teacher, you know, in 21 years I've seen a change. We went years ago from practicing for fire drills and tornado drills to Tuesday, I got to experience active trainer shooting in the building. Things have changed. I think we live in a scary time, and I'm worried about what's available out there for consumers. I'm worried about my students. I have students, you know, and it's not just the students who have special needs, it's the students in the building. We have students who, you know, as an educator, I've been kicked, I've been bitten, I've been, you know, spat at. I'm worried about students getting what they need. And are there services available? And if we're cutting services, what's going to happen to the people who need these services? What is going to be out there for them? So I guess when I come to you, I'm talking to you as an educator, because I'm worried about, you know, things being available for people who need them. And I see it every day. I see it right in my classroom every day. And I guess that's about it. I'm just, you know, passionate about my babies getting what they need and their families getting services.
Thank you, Lanette. Any questions for Lanette, commissioners? Any questions or comments? I'm sorry, please, Elizabeth. Commissioner Lucido?
Hi, thank you for coming today. I can certainly understand where you're coming from. I've been an educator, a teacher for over 20 years, and I agree how things have changed, and I commend you for, I know we aren't paid that highly, and then to volunteer your time on top of it. I commend you for that, because I know the concern is real, and protecting our families of the children we're in front of every day is so important.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other, Commissioner Toko?
I just wanted to check with you on the time commitment. Do you have the time commitment to give to this? Are you aware of when the meetings are and how frequently they are?
Yes, I do have the time available.
Okay. And do you have prior experience, outside experience other than your education teaching with community mental health? Do you have any family members, or are you listed as a consumer or a secondary consumer?
No, I'm not a consumer. Just as an educator is my experience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your application.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other speakers, for Lanette, thank you very much for coming here today. And the last candidate is Lori Ann Phillips. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and thank you for... My name is Lori Phillips. I'm a mother and a grandmother. I have a 31-year-old son who is autistic impaired and behavioral, who does receive services from CMH. I also have an 8-year-old grandson who is high-functioning autism. I started working, I guess my empathy and everything started coming in. I worked for Martha Teaberry for years, and that's where my love of kids came in. I took care of the babies. I went on to school and worked for 20 years in the medical profession in doctors' offices, doing the x-rays, the EKGs, the shots, you know, working alongside the doctor. At one point, I decided that I needed to change careers and get on board with more of my son that was at the ISD at the time, as well as our local district at Chippewa Valley, to get on his schedule, because he'd have a day off or a snow day, and I still had to go into work. So I started working for the Macomb Intermediate School District. I worked for 18 years as a bus driver. And I retired in 2012. That lasted 6 months. And then I went back as a sub-paraprofessional. I've been doing that long-term assignments since then. Not only do I have the compassion as a mom, I do as a grandma. I want to see continue. 3 years ago, I met with Liz Sorowski, who at the time was on the board, and I started talking to her to, like, you know, can I do this? You know, I'm not sure about the workings on the inside. I have been attending some of the meetings to see what's going on. I have been to Lansing to speak as a parent as far as the rebasing and what my thought was, and the unfairness of the rebasing, like that was mentioned. You know, the UP, the $10 there compared to the $10 here, Macomb. I've also have served on the board of the Macomb Autism Society. I did that all through the 90s when my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 5. I left because I was working on a bus and working many hours. I went back a few years ago, and I have just recently left that board again. I have been an advocate. I have attended IEPs with parents. I have been an advocate for all special needs children, especially those with cognitive impairments, mental impairments, whether they're emotionally impaired. They're my love, they're my life. I will fight for them to retain the services that hopefully they all deserve, and for the help for the parents, because I know what it's like as a parent. And I'm ready to take on a new adventure since I left the Macomb St. Clair Autism Society, and I'm hoping that I can bring value, take this as a learning experience, and also bring some value to the CMH board.
Thank you very much, Lori. I have Commissioner Toko on
No,
the list.
I'm sorry, I wasn't on. I
You're
didn't-
not on the list. Commissioner Romano, you're on the list.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming, Ms. Wills. Just one question, really. I see you here now. I see you as a bus driver with a lot of time. Who takes care of your 31-year-old son when you're doing these activities?
Well, I don't work as a bus driver anymore. I retired.
Got it?
I work back at the school districts as a sub-paraprofessional. My husband is retired.
Okay.
I do have CLS workers in my home.
Okay.
And since he's retired, and I just need something to do to get out of the house at night. And I work sometimes on an on-call basis. I am long-term right now at Lutz School with the ISD. And, you know, I do have my evenings free, and I'm ready to jump in.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Chair
Anybody
Smith.
else?
Thank you, Lori, for coming tonight. And you just mentioned Lutz School. You work there, and that's, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Lutz School. That's a special needs
Yes.
school.
Yes,
School for
with our
special needs
Macomb
children.
Intermediate School District. That happens to be my present assignment right now.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
Any other questions for Lori, commissioners? Seeing none, thank you for coming here. To all the candidates,
Thank you.
there are 7 candidates for vacancies. Unfortunately, we cannot appoint all of you, but thank you all for coming here today, and thank you all for your time and willingness to serve the residents of Macomb County. So appreciate it. And yeah, and the appointment will be made at March 22nd, full board, which is next Thursday at 3 o'clock. So just to let all of you know. Okay, with that, Commissioners, we'll close that portion of the agenda and go on to a presentation by the amazing Mike O'Mara as soon as he's ready. Please, go ahead.
Thanks. Just so you know, the budget season's around the corner. We know that that's coming up fast. While we all have an awareness of generally what's going on around the community, I thought it'd be helpful to gain a little bit of additional insight. I asked our staff and Mike to put together some informational a presentation that'll provide us with some context just to help us when we consider the budget and, you know, appropriating the county budgets. And obviously, if you have any questions afterwards, Mike will be happy to answer them for you. So if you're ready, take it away.
Go for it, Mike.
I'm ready. And if you guys have any questions as we're going through, I'd prefer if you ask them as you get them instead of us going way past it and then backtracking, but do what you will. So they asked me to put together some data on kind of county comparisons, where we are versus where other counties are in the region across time. Because I think, you know, if we're up 5% on something and somebody else is up, everybody else is up 10%, we should know that. So in terms of jobs in the recession, so the lowest number of jobs for residents for each region kind of differs depending on where you are. I apologize for my Microsoft Paint skills. 2009 was the worst case for Kent County, Washtenaw, Livingston, and Monroe. And 2010 was the worst case, more across the board, for the state of Michigan, Macomb County, Oakland, Wayne, Genesee, and St. Clair. So first, let's start with population data. And most of the info I pulled here is from the U.S. Census Bureau, some from the IRS, and some from some other sources, as you'll see. So in terms of raw number of people migrating, state gained about 40,000 between 2010 and 2015. Oakland was about the same, and then you kind of see it trickle through there. I've highlighted Macomb, which is kind of in third place for the county, with Monroe, St. Clair, Genesee, and Wayne seeing losses. If you look at that as a percent, though, Macomb drops. I'm going to go back and forth for a second. We're third when it comes to raw numbers, but Washtenaw and Livingston jump in front of us when it comes to as a percent, which puts us in last place of these 9 counties that I looked at for counties that grew. Let's look at real estate data, and Commissioner Romano, feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts. So 2010 to 2015, change in total housing units. So this would be if new units are being built, or if units are being taken down, that would be the shift here. Macomb is in second place at 1.2%. If you look at a change in vacant units, obviously a lot of people lost their homes during the recession. They went vacant, they got filled. Macomb reduced its vacant units. However, it seems to be relatively less of a percent than Kent, Oakland, and Washtenaw. We've also seen a change in owner-occupied units. So obviously you have owner-occupied versus renter-occupied. I'll get into renter in a second. Macomb is the second highest loss of owner-occupied units across this time. Part of that may also be due to the share of homes below $100,000 in value. As you can see here, everybody went up, but the speed at which they went up is different. Macomb County is second in those values going down.
Mr. Chairman, question. Do we have a glut of homes for sale, or do we have more buyers than homes available?
Vacancy rates.
I don't get it with this.
This chart or the one before?
This one or the one before it.
Okay, so vacancy rates are down. So instead of having more empty places,
right,
they're getting filled. But they're getting filled, the value of those homes, if they're being bought as opposed to rented, the value is down.
Point of information. Really?
Point of information, Mr. Chairman. As a share.
These are figures he shared from 2010 to 2015.
Right.
It's not bringing you to date. It's a whole different picture today.
Okay. Okay, because I'm
Right.
trying to
And-
link it with reality.
And well, the Census Bureau is only up to 2015. The 2016 numbers don't come out until September. In order to get county by county for recent numbers, the only place I had was Zillow, which we all know isn't perfect, but it's going to be kind of equally wrong across the board from a relative perspective. Wayne, Genesee, Washtenaw saw a lot of increase. Macomb's kind of in the middle. Median home value, same deal. It's not exact, but it is going to be relatively equal in how it measures them across the board. Washtenaw, Livingston, and Oakland are well above Macomb, which is more in line with Monroe and St. Clair. They also have a metric for list price per square feet. St. Clair, you'll see, isn't included. They didn't have a number. But same deal, Oakland, Washtenaw, and Livingston seem to be well above where Macomb is in this data. So back to renter-occupied units, which the inverse of owner-occupied. Macomb has had the fastest growth from 2010 to 2015 in new renter-occupied units. The share of units that are renter-occupied units, same deal, you'll see has gone up across the board. Because of the speed of the increase, Macomb County has also seen a greatest share of increase. If you have a pie chart, and it's owner-occupied versus renter-occupied, that is rapid, 6-point shift towards renter-occupied. The change in median rent has also gone up the highest. It's at 14.5 here. You'll see Washtenaw, Kent, Oakland slowly behind it. One number that I thought was interesting that you could pull was the share of renters that are spending more than 30% of their household income on rent. So this is people that are, lower income and going to, if they have any issues, they're going to be more likely to struggle. Some of these numbers go up, some of them go down. Macomb's at the front of that. So it's had a 2.2-point increase in share of renters who are spending more than 30% of their household income on rent. Livingston, Washtenaw, Monroe, Oakland, they've all decreased that share, which, as a contrast, Washtenaw, Kent, Oakland have seen higher level increases in rent, but they've seen decreases in their number of renters that are spending more than 30% of their household income. Moving on, residents with primary jobs. So this is one job per resident. It doesn't count multiple jobs. And same thing, 2010 to 2015. And this is based on where you live, not where you work. We'll get to where the employer is based later. So this is residents who live in Macomb or in Oakland and if they have jobs and what their jobs are in. So looking at the recession, 2002 to 2010, you'll see, Macomb was close to Oakland and a little better than Monroe, but Genesee and Wayne took huge hits in terms of numbers of jobs. We all know the recession hit Michigan extra hard, and these numbers show just how hard it hit. 2010 to 2015, Macomb has seen a higher level increase in primary jobs, which if you look at it as a net from 02 to 15, there's a 1.5 increase. Genesee and Wayne are still at the bottom, and Livingston has increased quite a bit. One thing of note is growth of older adults in the workforce. You'll see that Macomb has had the fastest growth of jobs among individuals 55 and up. If you look at 2002 versus 2015, you can see that there's an 8-point growth in that slice of the pie. You'll see that the less than 30 slices declined a little, and the 30 to 54 has declined significantly.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. I don't know if you know this, Mike. Is the fact that we have less younger people in our workforce, is that because they're leaving? Is there any data to support that along your presentation? In other words, you say we have job growth with folks that are 55 and older, but is it possible that we don't have the 30-year-olds to fill those jobs because they decide to go out of state or anything like that? Do we know?
I have a like raw number, total number version that I can get you.
Okay.
I don't know it off the top of my head. I think it's pretty static though. It's not a drastic drop.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that, and I'll get into this more later, I think are post-recession, they're going back to work.
Okay.
And they're not leaving work.
Okay.
In a way that they may have before.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Oakland, similar 9-point increase in 55 and up. Wayne is an 8-point increase in 55 and up. So in which industries are our residents getting these new jobs, this 15.5% of new primary jobs? Macomb is the fastest growing in terms of residents who work in the accommodation and food service industry. Just for context, this is the U.S. Census Bureau breaks down into 20 different industry sectors where these jobs fall. So I've highlighted some that I thought were most relevant to Macomb. So 18% increase in accommodation and food service. 33% increase in manufacturing. 46% in construction jobs. 26% in retail. And this is where I started to get a little concerned. Your professional science and tech jobs, Macomb is fourth, quite a bit behind Genesee, Oakland, and Livingston in terms of growth. Your healthcare jobs, which we all see going up everywhere, Macomb is lagging a little behind the others. Management of companies, your kind of people who identify as CEOs or entrepreneurs, were towards the back of that as well. So what does that mean for the median household income of your residents? Is that, these industries, are they paying, are they not paying? 2010 to 2015, adjusted for inflation, Macomb is at the back of that pack with only about a 3% median household income increase. Livingston, yeah.
Over 5 years, a 3% increase.
Right, across 5 years. Livingston, Oakland, St. Clair are all quite a bit.
So that's not per year, that's 3.25% over a 5-year period, adjusted
Correct.
for inflation.
Starting at the number, the median income in 2010 and ending at the median income in 2015.
3.2, that's not per year, that's the whole time.
The whole
over
time.
5 years. Andre?
I'm trying to keep up with you here. Go back to that manufacturing job growth. You've got 33%. Is there any? Okay, the job growth is 33%. Are we matching people that have the skills to fill these positions, or are we importing people from other counties or other areas, or what? Or
So this number is residents who work in manufacturing. This doesn't mean that they work in Macomb. They could work in Oakland. They could work in St. Clair.
wherever.
Right. I'll get into that part a little later in terms of where the business is located.
No, because the numbers, the 33% that's pretty staggering actually. But let's see where all this goes to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sauger wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, could you go back to the schematic on the food service?
Yeah.
Okay, you got us way up on top, just about. Is that taken in consideration? All these people, some of these people are getting into this fast food service employment?
It seems to be, the definition of this category seems to be like hotels, like people who work in hotels, motels, and also restaurants, whether it's fast food or any sort of restaurant. Seems to be the category for this.
But fast food has to play a big part in this, doesn't it?
I would think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So where we were, from 2010 to 2015, the median household income up only 3 points, only 3%, quite a bit behind the others. So what does that mean for 2003 to 2010 when we went through, leading up to and through the recession? As you can see, the purchasing power for families, which but I thought was interesting to see it as a percent. Macomb, 20%, lost 20% of its purchasing power from 2003 to 2010. So if you take a look at this across 2003 to 15, Macomb County comes in last place in terms of this, with a 17.3% median household income decline. And before you ask your question, what does 17.3% mean? If in 2003 your family had just enough budget to buy 12 months worth of groceries, in 2015, assuming you trended equally, you can now only afford 10 months of groceries. That is 17.3%.
Go ahead, Commissioner Drollet, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure I correlate these graphs properly. So the graph that deals with 2010 to 2015 median income shows that there has been 3% growth over those 5 years in median income. And the graph on the next page starts in 2003, not 2010. So it shows that even though we've experienced a 3.2% growth in median household income over the last 5 years, we are still essentially
way below
17% less, even with that 3% increase, than we were in 2003.
Correct.
Adjusted inflation.
You would basically need to, I mean, you look at the numbers to get, if you lost 19%, you need to grow, I don't know, by 50% to get back to that 19 to equal
Plus
it out.
the
If that
inflation
makes
rate, yeah.
exactly. I mean, very serious. Commissioner Kleinfeld, did you have your hand up? I
Yes,
saw
thank you. So you made the analogy on the 10 months of groceries versus 12 months, but I'm looking at this, that doesn't account for inflation during that time. That's if the groceries stayed the same price, isn't it?
Well, these numbers are adjusted for inflation, and that would assume inflation rates equal for groceries. If groceries have gone up above inflation, I don't know the answer. They may have.
So
Right, if you say it's static,
how would
then-
the percentage of household income be adjusted for inflation? I mean, these numbers are percentages of household income. Regardless of what happens with inflation, the household income.
But your purchasing power. So if, let's say, just hypothetically, that inflation goes up 1.5% every year. If the average household income is $46,000, and I have all the hard numbers at my desk, and we can go through it. Happy to. If the median household income is $46,000 in 2003, and the median household income is $46,000 in 2015, your take home's the same, but your spending power is significantly decreased because the value of the dollar has decreased over that time.
So when this says median household income, if it stayed the same, the percentage would drop.
When adjusted for inflation, yes.
And so you're saying that's what's happening here. Those aren't the actual household incomes. They're the household incomes as compared to inflation.
Correct.
Thank
and I
you.
have the actual numbers if you want to go through them as well.
Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Okay. So what about in terms of counties that are moving people kind of out of poverty into a middle class, into an upper middle class? Is anybody doing a good job of that? So you can see share of household incomes that are over 50,000, and they all go up from 2011 to 2015, which is great. The IRS page that I pulled this from didn't have a 2010, so I'm stuck with 2011. But at which speed are these moving? Once again, Macomb's at the back of that with only a 3-point growth, whereas Oakland, Washtenaw, Wayne, and Kent have moved faster in moving people over a 50K household income. This next section
Can I
is...
ask a question just to go back one slide? What I'm thinking here, I look at this and I'm just thinking, where's the wealth going in Macomb County? Is it the national trend, which for the last 40 years, the top 10% or 1% have been doing very well? So is that happening in Macomb County? Do we have a 1% or a top 10% in Macomb County that are doing very well? Or is 100% of Macomb County at this rate? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. I didn't run the upper echelon. I was curious in terms of I thought 50, the way that the brackets are set up is it's like under 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100. So it kind of restricted me in terms of brackets, but I can get you the over 100, over 200, over a mil numbers if you want to see how those have moved.
The problem is, and I'm going to be a little political here, is that there's nothing in place that's forcing the employers to increase the wage growth. And the thing that has done that in our country over the last 80 years has been the unions, and I'm not grandstanding there with Brian back there. That's my political statement of the day. So I'll leave it with that and let you continue. So please, go ahead.
Point of information.
Go ahead. I just think the most,
I
think the most
appreciate
important, hold on.
you
Most important
opining
thing we
your
need to look
personal
at is
opinion on
wage
that,
growth.
But the actual statistics are sharing household income on an average. So you're trying to throw politics into something. He's trying to show you pure numbers. At the end of the day, if you realize what happened in Macomb County that didn't happen in all the other counties, we lost the manufacturing jobs that we're not going to recoup, and we all understand and we respect that. But there's other industries that's coming in, and I'm not talking about the $3,000 jobs that we're short and we can't fill today of the lower echelon. I'm talking about the 1,500 jobs that they can't fill of the higher echelon of your engineers and everything else they cannot fill as of today because they're bringing in all this different stuff into our area we never had before. So we're bringing a new type of environment into our county. So when you want to say something like, well, it's because of the higher echelon and because of, put it in perspective. We lost the manufacturing jobs, be it union or non-union. We lost them. The plants are gone.
Mr. Chair, can we just move on with the presentation?
Go ahead, Mike.
So this next section is in terms of where the employer is located, and I'll be honest, I had a little difficulty finding a way to chart this in a way that made sense because, for example, professional jobs in Oakland County are like there's 5 times more of them than there are in Macomb County, and so to show it as a graph of growth, you know, it's going to show Macomb grows a lot because it doesn't need a lot of new jobs to show a high percentage of growth. So I created a metric which is meant for relativity. It's not super scientific, but it'll show you relative, and that metric is population of county divided by jobs in that district. So you'll see what I mean in a second. And this is to think of if you want to live in the county where you work, and you are in a certain industry. This is where you would have the most luck getting a job. Manufacturing. Macomb is towards the front of that. Now here, low is good. Good is always on the left. So it would not, there's a lot of jobs available per resident in manufacturing in Macomb. Not so many in Wayne, Washington, Genesee, which are on the right. Yeah.
Are we filling those jobs? Are we filling those?
Those are filled positions. This doesn't say if they're empty or not empty.
You know, from my standpoint, excuse me, Mr. Chair, but from my position, we're losing skilled labor that knows what they're doing with manufacturing, and the way they're making up for it is by buying the newest, latest, and greatest machinery that basically, yes, it's still manufacturing, and yes, it still needs people, but the people aren't the skilled labor it was 10, 20 years ago. And it's interesting that we're where we are with manufacturing.
And like I said, it's a relativity
Yeah.
in terms of population.
All right.
Thank you. I was just going to say that this is relative to these other communities.
Right.
And I think a lot of us are asking questions that you didn't go into.
And
And
the
that you
data
can't,
only gives me
that
so
you
much.
can't speculate on. You can only talk about what you've done here. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Retail, Macomb is third behind Oakland and Kent. Construction jobs, it's behind Livingston and Oakland. Kent's a lot lower. But here's, once again, professional science and tech jobs. Your higher paying, I think less likely to be affected by a recession jobs. The Macomb number is double the Oakland number here. Oakland has a lot of professional science and tech jobs, and Washington and Wayne also have a lot more relative to population than Macomb. You can see Monroe, Genesee, and St. Clair are way behind in that regard. The management, kind of CEO, entrepreneur, there doesn't look like, according to this data, that they're locating their businesses in Macomb as opposed to Oakland, Kent, or Wayne. And it's not on here, but this is 2010 to 2015. It's the same numbers. Healthcare jobs. Food and accommodation. This one I thought was interesting because in terms of where residents are getting new jobs, it's this sector. But in terms of where jobs are available for residents, we're way further back. So our residents are more likely to be working in the food accommodation industry, but there's fewer jobs in the county for them to be doing that work. So I would extrapolate that a lot of them are going to Wayne or Oakland to do those jobs. So summary, if I could, there was a lot of stuff I threw at you, and if I could boil it down to a few slides, let me do that. Does anyone have any questions before I get into that?
Wow.
Okay. The increase in residents with jobs is significantly more than the increase in residents. So the one chart, we see a 2.8% increase in new residents, but we see a 15.5% increase in residents who are employed. So 2010, a lot of people are unemployed getting their jobs back. However, the residents' incomes are not seeing the benefits of more jobs. Household income has only gone up 3% with 15% more work. Macomb's home values are more in line with counties that have been losing population than those gaining. As you can see, and I got another chart which shows it again after, Washington, Livingston, and Oakland are significantly higher than Macomb on these charts. Macomb is very much in line with Monroe and St. Clair, which have been losing population. You can see it here in the home values below 100,000. Wayne, it's on the left chart. You have Wayne, Genesee, and St. Clair, which are seeing these increases, as opposed to the other ones. We see a drastic shift from homeowners to renters. Macomb's down almost 6% in owner-occupied units and up 30% in renter-occupied units towards the front of both of these. And the new Macomb renters are more likely to struggle paying the rent than they are in other counties. Macomb is up 14.5% in terms of median rent, and it's up 2.2 points in the share of renters that are spending more than 30% of their household income. Some additional policy concerns. Macomb's highest industry growth is in sectors that are easily disrupted by a possible future recession. Accommodation, food service, manufacturing, construction, retail. A high percentage of the workforce is over 55. Is that because seniors can't afford to retire? Many of them will inevitably be leaving the workforce soon, whether they can afford to retire or not, due to probable health issues, which is going to mean we'll probably have an increased need for senior services over time. Additionally, Metro Detroit is a zero-sum game right now. If you heard Mike Duggan, Mayor Duggan, I think it was a couple weeks ago, said that they're competing with the suburbs for people and for business. There's a lack of new migration from outside this region. A lot of folks are just moving around. Municipalities are competing with each other for people, for business. Companies that move downtown are leaving vacancies in the suburbs. Southfield's having kind of an issue with taxes because a lot of their kind of long-term professional sector businesses are moving downtown and vacating those properties. And then you also have kind of a race to the bottom in terms of tax abatements, which when you pair that with state revenue sharing cuts, are leaving a lot of local municipalities without options. So what are some possible legislative actions and priorities? You guys, as the fiduciary body, can look at funding, senior services, Meals on Wheels, chore services. Also, how are marketing resources being spent? Are we attracting the people that we want to attract and the businesses that we want to attract? And additionally, quality of life improvements, water quality, parks, roads, schools, all things we talk about every day that if somebody wants to make a move is going to affect their decisions. And that was all I had, so happy to entertain any questions. And if anyone can prove me wrong on this, please.
Questions, comments for Mike? Commissioner Romano?
Chair. I would like the board to take in consideration the dates of what these were done. And Michael, you did an outstanding job for the information that was available to you. But as we all know, between the periods of 2015, 2018 included coming up now, we're experiencing growth that's phenomenal in all sectors, stock market, housing. And let me stick with housing for an example. In Macomb County, they're going up 15, 18%. You can't keep a house in Macomb County for more than 7 or 8 days, 10 days at the most, and it's gone. And we said that we've seen a big change in property value in Macomb, more so than we did, or a smaller recovery in Macomb than we did in Wayne County. Well, let's keep it in perspective. You could buy a house in Wayne County for $1,000. You couldn't buy that same house because it was foreclosed in Macomb County for less than whatever it may be, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. So our growth wasn't consistent with what the price of the house was in today's market. If you look at and if you look at the percentages, you're buying a house at $1,000, all of a sudden Wayne County went to $20,000. My goodness, look at that increase. Well, you can't put that in perspective with Macomb County because it didn't go that way. So taking all things into consideration, and it's a great report. I'd love to see the report from 2015 to 2018. But thank you, Michael. You made a great presentation. I appreciate it. Thanks,
Board. Commissioner. Thanks.
I think,
Chair,
if I can.
Yes, please.
I think it would be interesting to see them kind of lined up next to each other in terms of raw data and percentage. But one thing to take note of, a lot of 16 to 18, you're going to see Wayne County see a huge increase in younger people and rents. Because, as we've all seen, there's a drastic uptick in rent prices and people who want to rent. And I don't know if any of you saw the Detroit News piece that they did. It was, I think, 3 or 4 articles on not the downtown, midtown, but the neighborhood kind of slumlords that have been just not taking care of properties. And then you also have a foreclosure issue down there. So Wayne's an interesting one to look at with issues that obviously are unique.
Chair Smith.
Thanks, Mike. You did a great job on this. And just to Commissioner Romano's point, I think we all understand that the numbers really significantly probably get better from 2015, 2018. I guess part of the point is, does the percentages against comparative communities get better, or does just the general numbers of all the communities, do they change, like in perspective to each other? And we can't really tell, obviously, until all those numbers come out. But I think this was more of a, how are we changing inside the community versus other communities, and how are they changing, and what's the pace of everything, on these changes? And who knows, like you said, Wayne County has a lot of stuff going on. We may have increased in some areas and decreased in others in the last 3 years, but this is what we have right now, and this is all anybody really has to work on with solid numbers. So thanks, Mike.
Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mike, for the presentation. I mean, it's kind of big topics, so to speak. We could all interpret this information in a million different ways, and try to apply it in a million different ways, and come up with different policy considerations that we could help improve things. And I recognize Commissioner Romano's point that housing values may have changed, somewhat substantially in the last couple of years. I guess the one point that I personally continue to take away from numbers like this is that despite the increase in median income over the last couple of years, our constituents are still experiencing essentially even if it's improved the last 2 years since it's data, they're essentially down 15% in their household income from 15 years ago, and that's painful. And you illustrated it when saying if you had just enough groceries to cover 12 months. 15 years ago, you can cover 10 months today. And, I just try and keep that in mind in probably almost every major decision we make, that that's the budgets that I care more about. I know we care about the county budget, and we are paid to care about the county budget, and we should care about it. But ultimately, it comes down to the budgets of the people that we represent. They are sitting at a still 15% less than they made 15 years ago. There you go. And when we talk about how we're going to solve some of our problems as a government, and we know we're doing that for the benefit of citizens, we have to keep in mind that the citizens have less, not just the government has less. The people have less too, and substantially less. Our budget is not down 15% from 15 years ago after adjusted for inflation. Our salaries are not down 15% from 15 years ago after adjusted for inflation. But our citizens are. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drollet. Commissioner Doge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand what Commissioner Droulette's saying. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but it'd be an interesting conversation one way or another. Very well done, Michael.
Thank you.
Very interesting and thought-provoking, actually. Let me ask you something about Livingston County.
Yeah. Do you have a specific chart I can? go
Well,
back to?
it's a combination of charts. You're showing that change in total housing units. That's page 4 at the top. Livingston County had 2.2% total housing change in total housing units from 2010 to 15, while Macomb had 1.2%. Are you comparing in any of this total population numbers? Because Livingston County is nowhere near the size of Macomb, but while Macomb has grown and we're, what, about 875,000 now, I have no idea how many are in Livingston County. That being said, is Livingston County building a bunch of new quarters or new housing for people, while Macomb County on the south end has older areas, and you go to Armada, you go to Romeo, you have older sections in those villages also, but you also have the new buildings and so on and so forth. Can some of this be explained through a population shift, if
Yes.
you will?
Yeah, people are, and I think instead of flashing all the way back 50 slides to the one you referred to,
Right.
if you look at the right side of this one, I read this as people are choosing to locate in Kent, Washtenaw, Livingston, and Oakland more than they're choosing to locate in Macomb.
Is it because they have the room?
For Livingston, yeah. But Oakland is significantly higher population than we are. And it still sees a higher percent growth across this time.
Okay.
Livingston is building new houses because people want to move out there. So
the city of Detroit sprawl, if you will.
Right.
Or however you want to explain it.
Which I thought was interesting. I don't think I have it in a summary slide here. Macomb being towards the top of new housing units, but towards the back of growth in population across this time. One of the first slides is 1.2 increase in total housing units.
Right.
However, only a 2.8 increase in population across the same time. So we're building faster,
But growing less.
but growing slower.
Okay. Very, very well done. Very thought-provoking. Look forward to going over it a few more times.
And I've got spreadsheets on spreadsheets. If anyone wants,
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Just
Mr.
have a
Chair.
few more speakers, Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, Mike, the one that bothers me is the schematic on page 9. We're leading the pack in renters.
I just go back.
When you do your survey, your check and everything else, is there a way you're finding out what each community in the county, this may take a lot of time, may not be able to get it, how many renters you got compared to people who are buying their homes?
In terms of by community, yeah, I can pull that. I don't have that here, but it does allow me to pull it by community.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because there's some communities that got larger renters in the population.
And I think that would be interesting, and I would also do it with the share of renters who are spending more than a third of their household income on
Okay.
rent, because I think that would paint an interesting picture too. And areas of concern, should we see a recession like they're predicting late 19, early 20, these are the people that are going to get hit the hardest.
And
that
the
we
next
should
point,
think about.
when you do anything about homes, the expert is Joe Romano, being the real estate man. Okay.
Next on the list, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that was one of the issues I wanted to talk about, because I think the numbers may be skewed a little bit in here on renters. And I'm going to tell you why. In the last 7 years to today, I can, off just the top of my head, come up with 50 new facilities for rent only for senior citizens. Assisted living, non-assisted living, strictly 100% rented, you can't buy them. I can go from East Detroit, a school that was converted about 4 years ago into a senior only living. I can go through every community in Macomb County and show you how these new facilities are coming in, and that's skewing your number on your renters. So when you think about 200 people living in a place with income that they're just barely getting by to pay for that rent, because a lot of them are these senior assisted living, and I'm telling you, there's 14 of them right now in the drawing books in these communities that are out for bid right now that are building, that aren't even built yet. So that 50 plus another, at least 13 more that I can think of off the top of my head. So that's a lot, and that skews your numbers on renters, because the seniors are now moving into these senior-only facilities, assisted, non-assisted, and that skews those numbers. Now, yes, that is counted as a renter in the statistics. So when you look at that, it kind of throws that off. So I just really want to make sure I bring that to your attention looking at these, because I'm telling you, who in their community has not seen new ones pop up all over in the last 6, 7 years? Everybody has.
My question back to you would be the slide that I have up here. Why is Macomb so much higher? I don't think Macomb is unique in having senior facilities.
Because most of them are being built right here in Macomb, and I don't see them happening in Oakland, Oakland, Wayne, St. Clair. I see them being built just in our boundaries of Macomb County.
Okay.
3 new ones going up in Macomb Township in the next month.
Oh, just
yeah.
point out,
on that
and I don't know.
The percent of older citizens in Macomb County should be compared to the percent of older citizens in these other counties.
Absolutely.
To sort of gauge.
No, and I think that'll be your telltale of what's going on. The flip side of that, it makes no sense to me, and I know we're looking at figures right now from 2010 to 15, but Commissioner Romano can contest that there is a shorting housing right now. There is nothing on the shelf they call, whatever it's called, inventory. So at the end of the day, they are pushing new dirt and building new subdivisions right now because there's not enough homes. I don't understand, and again, maybe it's just because it's jumped that much in the last couple of years since this, of how we can have such new home starts and the population is not growing accordingly. That doesn't add up to me. I don't understand that. That's all I don't get that. So I'll have to get with you on that.
Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Thank you. I just want to clarify something, and this is actually for Steve. Because you've been in the finance department for a while. Now, you're not going to have a statistic, but Commissioner Drillette, when he was speaking about the 15% drop in the median income of the residents, indicated that the county had not experienced the same thing. And my understanding, like 2 or 3 years ago, it was like it would take 23 years to get to where we were before. Do you, off the top of your head, have an idea of what we are down adjusted for inflation? You know we are down, correct? Budget-wise, adjusted for inflation.
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot of, you'd expect mental health to be down. General fund might be up because we have a lot of patrol deputies. I don't have those numbers off the top. I'd have to compile some data for you.
Okay, but I mean, I know we've shed like over 100 positions, and we're not getting ourselves wealthy. So over that period of time, when we had the recession, I don't believe we have recovered. I believe we're in the same situation as the residents, that it may take years to recover.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I mean,
okay.
I would say it would be best to compile some data.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Fly off the cuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mike, for doing this. We've talked about this for a long time, so I'm really excited to see it finally in front of me. I have a question. You focused on the growth of older adults in the workforce.
Yes.
I'm wondering about younger adults in the workforce in the sense of, back when I was in college, there were a lot of kids my age, I'm going to say kids, that left the state. That was a big issue. Is there a way that we can look at, I know the last couple of years are kind of, we're waiting for the results of that, but I'm curious to see population shift in Macomb County and in the area for, you know, like the 18 to 25s that left for school or left because they couldn't find work after school, and compare it to now. Is that possible when the new census comes out?
Define now. I mean today.
Or 25, whatever we have the data for.
I can get you the solid numbers by county.
Okay.
for that. All it does is say 29 or lower.
That's fine.
I don't have anything. It won't give me a different. These are the three that it
The
gives
three
me.
age groups? Okay. I was just curious. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, one final thing I just want to say to the board, possible legislative action priorities. There is a statewide ballot initiative called One Fair Wage, which aims to increase the minimum wage to $12 an hour by the year of 2022. So that is something that's out there for the residents in the state to decide on. So thanks for coming here today, Mike. We need a motion to receive and file. Moved by Romano, supported by Leonetti. Please vote. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Well, very well done. Next item, Commissioners, Department recommendations, ordinance to establish the compensation of Macomb County Board of Commissioners and countywide elected officials for 2019 to 2020. What you have on your desk are two drafts. Draft number 1 and draft number 2, the pay for all the county-wides, including the county executive, are the same and were established in 2016. The only difference between draft 1 and draft 2 is that in draft 1, the county commissioner pay is for commissioners is $35. The chair of the board is $90. Draft number 2, there's a 2% increase in there that you see. So with that, I will open up for discussion for this. Commissioner Sauger.
Yeah, I'd like to have this pulled and let the commissioners have time to look over this. I just got this now. There's a lot to read, and I'd like to decipher what I want to vote on.
Okay.
And I think the rest of the commissioners, if they so desire.
Okay, I'm looking, if you want to speak, please put your name on the list. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, we just had a compensation study done for our employees, and I agree with Commissioner Sauger. I don't feel comfortable about looking at any kind of increase for our salaries until we take a look and see what we're going to do for our employees. That's just the way I feel about it. And so, you know, I'd like to see how far we're coming along on that before we make any decisions with respect to that. And that's just going to be my position, and I'm sorry if other commissioners don't feel that way, but that's just the way I feel. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we go on, in just talking with Crystal, we do have to adopt this compensation by the filing deadline. The filing deadline, as I understand, is the second Tuesday in April. Am I correct in that, Crystal? So if we were to postpone this, commissioners, we have, you know, until the filing deadline in April would be, we'd have to decide that by. So just to let all of you know that, okay? Next
Mr.
on
Chair, point of
I'm
information. I believe the filing deadline is April 24th.
April 24th. So that gives this board, let's see here, about 5 weeks to make a decision on this, just to let all of you know.
And I understand that, but are we going to have any decision for the employees within 5 weeks? I doubt that, right?
Okay, we're going to stay on the list of speakers. So you're done, Commissioner Leonetti?
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, is there anything coming up on any agendas with regard?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Commissioner Duje?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, first of all, we've got to have the compensation done prior to the filing deadline so everybody knows what the position they're running for is paying. That being said, the salaries for countywide elected officials for the county clerk, register of deeds, prosecutor, public works commissioner, county sheriff, and county treasurer, we don't need to do anything on it this year because they are not up for election.
Correct.
There's no change.
So there's no change to that. And I don't know which one, the first one has this going up in 19 and 2020, and there's matter of fact, both of them do, and there's no reason for any of it. The county executive is up for election this year, but I'm not sure what his compensation is set at.
And talking to Crystal, just to interrupt, I'm sorry, it looks like that's 2% from year to year. Is that right, Crystal?
Is the first one or the second one the same as that
Yes.
was set in 16?
Yes.
The first one's the same as it was 2 years ago.
Draft 1 and Draft 2 are both the same, correct? For everybody except for the Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners. Draft 1 and Draft 2, same compensation.
And if we do nothing, then does the annual salary for commissioners stay at 35,000 and the salary for the board chair stay at 90?
Yeah, Crystal's saying that we have to pass an ordinance by the filing deadline for the commissioners.
Or what?
Violation of our charter.
No, that's.
Hold on. Mr. Shapka, can you come up here and help us with this, please? Did you hear the question, John?
I can clarify very quickly. It can be exactly the same as
Hold
it
on,
was
I want to
2
hear
years
from our
ago,
corp counsel,
but we got to
please.
pass something.
There are several
Why?
questions being
Yes,
batted back
yes,
and forth.
yes.
Which one are we addressing right now?
We're addressing the county commissioner compensation, whether or not we need to vote on it or not by the filing deadline.
You should vote on it before the filing deadline, so any members who want to challenge any of the incumbents know exactly what the compensation is.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the question is, if we don't change anything and we don't vote on any of this,
Then
does it
remains-
stay what it is this year?
It stays what it is this year.
That's the question. So if we do absolutely zilch, it'll stay what it is now.
Because it would not be factored into the next year budget.
Yeah.
It's a question of
That-
are we required to pass something?
Yeah.
You have to pass at least the existing ordinance to maintain salary.
Oh, okay,
At the
then that,
existing
that,
level.
that was the question.
Yes, because the ordinance runs out, and so does technically the
Oh,
funding that's tied to the ordinance.
Okay, then the ordinance runs out at the end of this
Yes,
year.
you can vote a new ordinance at the existing levels, or you can vote a higher level, but you should do so before filing deadline for the 18
That was the
election.
question. Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner.
Chair.
Commissioner Carabelli, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just real quick, I appreciate everybody talking about the other study, but there's a study that was commissioned on this way prior to the other study that was commissioned. There was results that came up from this. You can agree, you can disagree. Everybody has that right. These numbers that were put in there, these are not numbers that a staff member came up with. This is nothing that a commissioner came up with. These numbers came from a professional that we spent money on and went to the outside to say, where are they at and comparable with the rest of the counties? Because what happened was there were some positions that they said, hey, no, I don't want to raise. I don't want to raise. Well, guess what? It put it in such difference that when you went and put it where it was supposed to be, everybody said, what are you guys doing? Well, here's the deal. You can do absolutely nothing, and you don't have to raise. You don't have to do anything. Everybody can vote the way they want. This was done so that it took politics out of it. It took politics 100% out of it. That's why this was done, so that a commissioner, an elected official, didn't get to pick what their salary was. Now, with that said, let's go back history when we did that. The commissioners up here voted one time for a $5,000 pay cut, another time for a $3,000. I mean, I can go on and on. We've given ourselves pay cuts. It was a bad time setting the example. I'm not saying we need to give an increase. All I'm saying is that these numbers were paid for by the county for a study that was commissioned. Us commissioners can choose what you want to do. So at the end of the day, this is a study, just like the one for our employees, that was commissioned and delivered, and we have the results, and we either act upon it or don't act upon it. Now, with that said, you know, at the end of the day, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I wasn't prepared tonight to really work on this. I thought it was just informal. We'd have a discussion, sort of like the board rules. You know, we talked about, you know, absences. We've talked about a lot of different things. And a lot of things were put into the past. And they were put in the past because people were abusing the system. Is one absence a good number? Is no absence a good number? You're represented by the people. And at the end of the day, you don't show up, they should vote you out. I mean, that's just my opinion. But at the flip side of it, there was commissioners that never showed up. Well, that's why they implemented this stuff. So this is the discussion I would like to talk about with the board, is that where is this, and this was not part of the study that we had commissioned, where should we be in this? You know, under attendance, where's the answer to that? I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I think that's something I'd like to discuss. And if we can do, just send in our questions to the board, however the chair would like to do it, but I think that's something we should discuss. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chair Smith.
Thanks. So I just want to clarify draft 1 and draft 2. The only difference, so draft 1 comes from the compensation study before. That's what's on there. That's how it came up. I'm not sure if we chose at that time to give incremental increases to the other 5, the county big 5 or whatever, by the 2% or not. But somehow or another, the commission didn't incorporate themselves into the automatic 2%, whatever. So the draft 1 is keeping it exactly how it is based on what we voted on 2 years ago. Draft 2 just includes the commissioners in the prosecutor, treasurer, clerk, executive, everybody's 2% raise. And that's the real question on here. It doesn't have anything to do with the compensation study. The question we should be asking, I guess, is what are the workers getting? And if they're getting, 1% or 0.5%, should we maybe limit ourselves to that, or should we just do nothing at this point? Should we look at one of Leon's, conversations or points and say cost of living increases only? But I guess, at the end of the day, we're going to be voting on, do we keep it the same? Do we do it like draft 2 is? Do we throw something else in there that's not even a part of this? And yes, we have to do something. It's in the ordinance that we have to vote on something. Now, if nothing happens, I guess we're just not doing our job. I'm not sure what the penalty is to that, but I can't understand why we just do nothing. So I don't understand that question. The question is, we pick something at the end of the day and we pass it per ordinance. So there shouldn't, and back to you, Commissioner Carabelli, I'm not sure too many people have talked about, no one's really brought up to me except for this there's a few people that always talk about the absence policy. We don't have that problem anymore. I don't know that anybody's lost any significant amount of money for being absent for any particular reason lately. And you're right, it does come in from in the past. People would miss meetings, and if you didn't have a reason behind it, sometimes, and everybody's human. It's human nature, different. Everybody's different. So some things like that might keep you coming to a meeting, right? When most of us would just go to the meeting no matter what. So, I mean, the big thing is, and we don't have to vote on it now. We do have time. Do we just keep it the same? Technically speaking, that's kind of where I'm at this. Just keeping it the same and moving forward, and that would probably make life very easy and uncomplicated for everybody. I'm done.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Next on the list, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. First, I want to clarify a couple of things. With regard to the compensation study, we did follow it with regard to every position except for the chair's seat. We went the opposite direction of what that study said with regard to that seat. So I just wanted to clarify that. The question about when the employees' contracts are up, it seems to me we're ratifying employees' contracts. This group, that group, this group. Which group are you talking about? And when did their contracts expire? Did we already do theirs? Are we already behind them? That's what I'm not exactly sure about. Because we could always be behind them, and we could have that same discussion every time we do it. I think there's a couple of things that we need to settle when we come back and discuss it again. The first is, as Commissioner Carabelli indicated, the wording on the absences. I know that was something that was really important to Commissioner Sauger that he wanted to discuss. I actually had thought about, there are 7 commissioners that are here now that didn't get grandfathered in to the defined benefit system. But we were not put in the defined contribution system as all the new employees were. And that's a discussion I would like to have, because we have two different tiers here. So we've got commissioners that actually kind of make more than other commissioners because they're grandfathered in. Should we put in the ordinance that we would get equal to whatever the employees get starting from this date? So that's a discussion to have. Defined contribution, not defined benefit. And a little bit of housekeeping. I've already talked to Patty. I want everybody to know with respect to draft number 2 on section 3, when we added the part to insert the 2% pay raise, a couple of sentences were dropped off underneath that. So if we're going to keep the part in with regard to absences, you will see that paragraph doesn't make any sense. The reason is there's some sentences missing from draft number 1 that would have to be put in for draft number 2. As it stands, that section makes no sense. So that's just a small mistake there. The other one is with regard to countywide elected officials. The wording here is, and I understand why they're in here. All we did was drop off the last 2 years' columns. Because we're adopting a new ordinance, they still have to be in it. However, the wording is for the ones whose term do not expire this year, like ours in the county executive, this says they're hereby granted for the term of their office commencing on January 1, 2019. The rest of the countywides don't commence on January 1, 2019. There's 2 ways to fix this, and it doesn't matter to me which one we do. The first is to either change the wording to for the portion of their term commencing on January 1, 2019, or we go ahead and add back those 2 columns, the 2016-17 and 2018 columns, and put the right time for their term, because we're using the word term incorrectly. Having done that, so that has to be fixed. I've pointed that out to Patty. He wanted to talk about the attendance, so I guess everybody can think about
Attendance
that.
is in there, just to let you know. There's a mistake in the hard copy, but electronically, it does include the attendances.
It's been fixed in
Yes, it's been
okay.
fixed.
Okay. So that's all I wanted
Okay.
to. Oh, one more thing, the compensation study. Do we still want that in there, section 6?
We can take that out.
Okay, it doesn't matter to me. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to make sure I understand it a little better, we are legally by state law not allowed to reduce or change, but certainly not reduce a elected official's compensation in the middle of their term. So that's the reason it would seem that the full-time electeds who serve 4-year terms, we have that going out for a 4-year period. This may be a technicality, but do we even need to include them then? Because those were set before for their full 4-year term. It's not as if we can actually change them in the middle of their term.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just the commissioner's pay in the office of the executive. That's
Out of
correct.
curiosity, why the
can
office of the executive?
Point of
That's
clarification here. No, because we're rescinding the last ordinance, we are rescinding theirs if we don't insert them in here. We're rescinding that one and replacing it with this one.
Okay, thank you
have the
very much,
floor,
Commissioner. That helps. And then Commissioner Sauger, asked if it may be possible that we had more time to review it. I'm in favor of doing that. I'm capable of voting right now, and willing to, I guess. But if people want to put this off and we've got the time to do it in April, I'm in favor of that as well. So whichever. Yeah. Thank you.
On the second round, Commissioner Leonetti.
I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion that we pass an ordinance that keeps the pay scale for the commissioners as well as for the county executive the same, and so that we comport with what the legal standard is. We
So
put
that's
that new
draft. You're saying you would make an motion for draft number 1.
correct draft number 1,
Which keeps, just to correct you, which keeps the county commissioner's pay and chair of the board pay the same, but there are changes for the county executive's pay as that goes up the scale, as is.
and if the county executive gets a raise, is that only because of the fact that there was a study that suggests that he gets a 2% raise? Or
That's we voted in 2016.
so
what
that's
was
already
voted.
been committed. Is that what I understand?
Yes,
Because I
yes,
wasn't here in 2016.
Yes.
And I'm just going to say my reasons. I mean,
Is there support for that? First of all, is there support for that motion? Well,
no. The motion is going to be that we pass an ordinance, which is ordinance number 1, that suggests that the commissioner's pay stays exactly the same as it is today, and that the I guess the county executive, pursuant to the fact that in 2016 it was passed, that he would get a 2% cost of living, I guess, increase. I'd like to change that if I could, but I guess that's already been voted on in the past. But otherwise, that would be my motion.
So that's your motion to support basically draft 1. Is there support for that commission? Support.
Well, if we voted on it and said that we committed ourselves.
Yeah,
John,
I wouldn't.
Hold on. Can I ask through the? Go ahead.
I understand your intent, and I got no problem with it. And if you want to keep the commissioners with no raise, got no problem. Trust me, I got no problem with that. But I want you to be very careful and think about this. There was a money spent on a study, and I don't care, it's passed. But what happened was, we didn't do the right thing. We just said, nope, let's keep freezing it. Nope, let's keep freezing it. And so what happens is you put it in such an odd area that you had elected officials making less than the people that they were managing. Some of them are professional degreed required positions. So at the end of the day, be careful when you say no increase. Be careful what you did, because a lot of time and effort went into the reasoning behind it. Now listen, I don't begrudge you, I agree. No increase, I'm with you. Do that to us. But I'd be careful, because then now you set a precedent. So let's say you run for another 4 years, you decide no one gets a raise, and all of a sudden, boom, you're gone, and the next guy comes in and they say, well, hey, it should have been here. Why wasn't it there? Well, these guys didn't want to do the right thing, and I have no problem standing up and doing the right thing.
Let me just say this. In response, I get exactly what you're saying, because it'll be tough for some board in 2022 to say, God, we're going to have to give ourselves a 7 or 8% raise to get up. I understand that completely. But the fact is, this commission just got a raise in 2016. Okay, when I was running for office, it was $30,000. Then it became $35,000 just when I jumped into the race. And I just don't think that's a $5,000 increase for 13 commissioners here. Okay, if we take 13 times 5, that's let me make sure my math is right, $150,000, right? I mean, that's money, in my opinion, that could go to a new sheriff on the street, okay? That's money, in my opinion, that can go to a mental health professional that can help somebody on the street. I just don't think it's right at this time for this commission, who just gave itself a $5,000 raise, to just give itself any type of increase at this time. And I get what you're saying, Commissioner Carabelli, because it could be a problem in 2022 for the commission politically to say, God, we got to give ourselves a 10% raise. It could look bad. But right now, it's just my feeling, and this goes with the executive too. The executive got a 35% raise. A 35% raise in 2016. That's why I wouldn't mind clarification as to whether or not he should get a 2.
No, he didn't. The chair. Mr. Chairman.
No, I think the executive was.
Hold on. Commissioner Leonidas still has the floor.
I believe the executive, and I understand the chair. That's a decision, but I think the executive got an increase too in his pay. And I'm not picking on the executive by any means. I'm just saying generally overall, my position was that the county 5, the top 5, all got an increase. Our employees have not got an increase, and we've got positions that I think could be filled with ordinary, everyday workers that deal with the public on a basis. And that's my reasoning for where we're at. I completely understand what you're saying, Commissioner Carabelli. It's going to put a future commission in a position that might be difficult. I understand that. But at this time, I just think, given my feelings on where we're at with our employees looking for a raise, giving our feelings of where I'm at, where I think we need new deputies on the street and where we need new mental health professionals on the street, I'm just going to suggest that we stay where we're at now. And that would include the executive.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonidas. So hold on. I'm the chair here. What we have is a motion to support draft number 1. There is support, and I'd like to keep the discussion to that on the motion, okay? I have a number of speakers here. We'll start with Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. The reason I can't support that motion at this time is several commissioners have asked to have some time to look at this. We we did not discuss the section on the absences that Commissioner Sauger had asked that we looked at. We didn't have the discussion on the defined contribution, and there may be no support for that. But there are other things in here with that aren't just salary related that we were going to discuss before passing, and that's all going away with your motion. So I won't be able to support it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list pertaining to the motion at large is Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm struggling to decide whether I should vote for this motion, not because I have a problem with the intent and overall so forth regarding it, but I think this illustrates the challenges we face because our positions are political, and we face a lot of political incentives that other types of organizations don't face. And so therefore we end up with awkward decisions that sort of end up being distorted. We push off raises on somebody else's problem in the future because that makes political sense for us today, and vice versa. And I would hope that that we can look at potentially coming up with a better system that takes a little bit of the politics out of it in the future. It makes it a little bit easier and more rational, something that citizens can see in a predictable manner and have an expectation of a reasonable, predictable, salary adjustments moving into the future. And I've been advocating that and sent something around to that effect. I realize you're trying to keep this to the motion, so I'm just a little challenged whether I want to support the motion right now or whether I prefer that we just let it go until next month and get a little more chance to look at it. So thank you.
Thank you. Chair Smith.
Thank you. I have the study from last time, and the 2% increases were a part of the study. It was also included for the commissioners, but we decided against that at that time. So although it was in there, that was the commissioners and the chair are the only ones that didn't participate in the 2% increase that, well, at least that was recommended at the time. As to your point, we adopted that 2 years ago. We are readopting that. If someone felt like taking the 2% increase out for the executive, I'm pretty sure that would be legal because it would be for a new executive, even though, because that's coming up. We couldn't take that out for the existing, as Leon said, number one. Number two, I don't have any problem with it, but with what you're recommending, but I do see the problem that Leon brings up is that, we keep kicking the can down the road, and then pretty soon we're like, well, how come everybody else in the county, and I'm just saying in general, was getting raises during this time, but not the commissioners? Is there some, they're not worthy of getting a raise at any point when anybody else in the community of Macomb County, workers are. I'm not saying 2% is right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just pointing out the problems. And last but not least, we can kick this down to April. It's fine, but I'm not sure how much more discussion we have to have on the absence policy. We've had this discussion every single time we have this, and there are a few people that don't want that, but it's not something that we can't discuss at a meeting also. So I don't have a problem passing this as it is. I don't care if we move it down the line, but we've all discussed the pros and cons of having an absence policy in here several 100 times during this, and we know that there's a few people that are against it and a lot of people that see the reason for it. And it is what it is. We can keep talking about it for another month again. That's fine. So, but I just wanted to point out that 2% was in the study. If this, maybe seems like we need to, make a motion to table this until next meeting and then get this a little straightened out between everybody, by then. So that's
just a point of information, Mr. Chair. Was it in the study or was there an actual resolution that we passed?
We passed a resolution based on the study, basically, saying that this is what we recommend in the study, right? So we didn't just add 2% to the sheriff and the prosecutor every year. That was based on recommendations from the study.
But I think what Commissioner Lanette was saying is that there was some ordinance or some.
Well, we passed an ordinance, but
that said that it would be 2% this year, because I think that's what you're thinking, that you're bound by that.
Yeah, you're not bound by that for the executive. You're bound by it for the other ones that aren't up for election.
All right. Thank you.
Just so it's clear, we're not bound for us, and we're not bound for the executive.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Before we continue with the speakers, Crystal informed me that the full board meeting for April is a day after the filing deadline, which means that if we postpone this, to April, we would have to have a special full board meeting. Next speaker on the list, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. And I have no problems with Commissioner Leonetti's proposal. I just wanted to mention the fact that we can eliminate all these problems as we've done it in Sterling Heights. And I don't know if this commission has the authority, or if the executive has the authority, to appoint a 3 or 5 man compensation committee. And it's written in stone. What they agree, what they want to do is this is what they give out. We can either accept or reject. It's that simple. This is a study that we had. We didn't have a compensation committee. We had a study. So we have a compensation committee that says, listen, they can't reduce it. They can only give you an increase. And normally what they try to do is give it half of what the normal employees would get. So with a compensation committee, there's no discussion here. Here's what they say. Here's what they bring forward. Here's what they would like to do. And our choice is very simple. It's a yay or nay vote. Either we accept what they want to give us or we reject what they want to give us, and it stays constant. I don't know if, for myself, speaking personally, I have no problems with staying the way we are. But for me to say to the executive, I don't think you deserve a 2% pay increase, I'm not really comfortable with that. If the other employees are getting it, why shouldn't he get it? And that's my personal opinion, and I have no problems with voting on it now. But that's my personal opinion. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. On the motion, Commissioner Dujay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although in theory I agree with we could conceivably vote on this, what is missing here is it was $35,000 in 2005, and we took a 5% cut in 2007 or 8. We took another 5% in 2008 or 9. So we cut it from 35 to 30. There was at least a 10% cut in the whole thing. And the idea in 2016 was to get it back to where it was in 2005. So I have no problems leaving it at 35, but saying that going from 30 to 35 was some big increase. No, it was just getting us back to what it was earlier than that. This board, even with 26 people, stuck its head in the guillotine and chopped us first before we chopped anybody else. So I think this board has been more than fair and more than responsible in leading the show and cutting our own pay before we cut anybody else's. That being said, I would like to talk a little bit more about the 6 absences with Commissioner Sauger. Maybe make it 8, maybe make it 10, whatever it is. But that was the idea behind the 35 to begin with. Leaving it where it is fine and dandy. I think that we should take out the County 5 because they don't apply. But I wanted to make sure that everybody understood where the increase originally came from. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I listened to Commissioner Kleinfeld, and you know, it does ring a bell. I believe that there were some commissioners up here that used to get full medical, and they used to get full retirement. No, medical for the rest of their lives. And I think as part-time commissioners, there's even medical that's afforded to commissioners up here. You're right. I think Commissioner Leonetti's right. We should take a look at that and eliminating some of the things that don't belong and put them back into programs. I got no problem with that. I truly don't. So I'm willing to take a look at this. I'm willing to take a look at everything. You know, you brought up some good points. I looked at that before, and I don't think I was in that window, and I don't think I got that benefit, but I'm going to look. But with that said, if the motion is withdrawn, I would like to make a motion to forward this to next week finance. And if anybody has any concerns in the meantime, to get with the board chair, so this can be all brought together, disseminated to the board prior to the meeting, so we can all look at it and take a pen to it and make any adjustments you want. And a copy of the study be reissued to all the commissioners. So you can take a look at it, and by next week, Thursday, we could opine on it, vote, and then we have next week, Tuesday? Is it? Thursday. No, Thursday we have a full board next week. Wednesday. So Wednesday, and then it gives you another day to vote it on Thursday.
So the motion right now is to go to the full board, and you're you would like it to see it go to finance, so we have one more day to discuss.
Actually, the motion, I believe, on the floor is to vote on it right now. I said if that's withdrawn, I'd like to make it for next week, Wednesday finance. Is it Wednesday?
Well, so are you making that motion right
If
now?
that
I'll tell you what
motion's
I can do.
withdrawn.
I can,
Hold. There is a motion on the floor, so I need to keep going on the list. So whoever wants to speak next.
Not if he withdraws it.
Not if, okay.
I'll withdraw. I'm reasonable. It
Okay.
gives everybody a week, but we're going to do it at finance.
Okay, so you want to withdraw that, and now.
With the condition that it be addressed Veronica, you're going to put it on the agenda?
I will. I don't know where board rules is going, but I won't tackle both of them on the same day. So if this goes to finance, I'll hold off on board rules. I don't even know if board rules is going back to your committee, because we didn't finalize that.
Very
I don't
good.
mind tackling this one
So the
first.
secondary, the motion, Commissioner Kraft, are you okay with that as well? Okay, so now after all this discussion, Commissioner Kleinfeld, Chair of Finance, is agreeing to put that on the agenda for finance next Wednesday. So with that, I think that closes. We need a motion for this now.
I can make the motion again.
So you want to make the?
I'm going to make the motion that we keep the pay for the commissioners the same, okay, and that we essentially adopt ordinance number 1, which I think is here, and that we move that over to the finance committee for discussion.
I think what was said was we want to move the whole discussion to that day on the finance committee to talk about it then, is what my feeling is.
And my understanding is that, I withdrew my motion. Under the rules, I withdrew my motion. But the intent behind withdrawing my motion is that we would discuss an ordinance and pass an ordinance on the finance committee meeting.
And that's what the chair of the committee has agreed to, Chairman.
Do we need a motion then? Okay.
Okay,
Fair.
so that.
So could I have a clarification?
Please,
then,
go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So what we're doing is forwarding this agenda item. We're not selecting one of the two plans and forwarding one of those two plans.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So we're just forwarding this.
Correct. Okay, seeing no other speakers on this, would you please vote, Commissioner Carabelli?
With that said, with this motion that we're going to vote on, it's incumbent on every commissioner that if you would like to make a motion, that you go to the past motions, make sure you've got it all legal, and make sure that everything is correct and we're following all the rules of being that it's about attendance, be it it's about compensation, be it it's about removing medical benefits for commissioner, be it about keeping things the same. Whatever you want to do, it's incumbent on the commissioners to do your homework, get that back to the board so that can be disseminated prior to this meeting so everybody knows what's going on, because we want to act on it. So if you get all the information out there to everybody, we'll have an understanding of digesting it and being able to make a decision on it. So we don't have to prolong it any longer, if that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers, Commissioner Sauger.
I know you hate to hear me talking some more about this, but all the years I've been on this board, I can go back 10, 12, 15 years, and if Don Brown was here, he'd attest to this. They really haven't had no commissioner who has kept missing meetings because of everybody, nobody has had that extended period of time to be absent from a meeting. And the only reason it was brought up is there was a vendetta, and I'll use the word vendetta, from a commissioner from Clinton Township, about a commissioner in Clinton Township. Some other one, you're missing too many meetings, and that's why it was put in there. That's the only reason. And I've checked with other county commissioners that I know in different parts of the state. Nobody has this attendance thing. Nobody. And the deal about the pay raise, that was another political stunt. There was two commissioners, one year, one another. Let's take 5%. It's a good political thing. And that's why it went through. And now people are saying, well, I don't want to. I want to look at this absentee thing more. Go ahead and look at it more. But we're not kids. We're all grown-ups. The people out there who vote for us are the ones that are take us in or take us out. And believe me, it was strictly a vendetta when it was put in.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner
I didn't know I
Sauger.
made him choke on that.
Yeah. We,
I hope everything works
all right,
out,
we
Bob.
have no other speakers. We have to move because we have more items to go to deal with. Please vote. This is to, thank you. Motion passes 10-0. We'll go on to item number 9. We have 2 resolutions, A and B. Do we have a motion for this? Yes. So they have to have separate motions. Go ahead.
Make a motion to adopt the resolutions on behalf of Clinton Township for their submissions for the Resources Trust Fund application. These resolutions are support both of their applications on behalf of the county.
Okay, so a motion for A and B supported by Commissioner Smith. Okay, any speakers on this? Seeing none, please vote. What about, okay. Item number 10 are proclamations, A through D. We need a motion for this, moved by Jolette in the entirety, supported by Commissioner Duje. Please vote, commissioners. Item passes. Any new business, commissioners?
Yeah, Bob, I hope you're okay. I was gonna call 911.
Almost had you, Marv. I do have some.
Okay, seeing no other new business, we do need to go to closed session, so we need a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chair, just real quick.
Please.
This meeting's going very long, and I think there are 3 members from the public. If they wish to speak for public participation, is there any objection to moving that
No
up?
problem. We'll move, without objection, we'll move public participation up. So we're gonna do.
Come on now,
Hold on.
jeez. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
We're gonna have public participation first and then new business after, without objection.
Oh, did
Public
you
part.
vote?
Any member from the public, please, you have 5 minutes.
No, I just wanted to give a point of information on the presentation that was done, and now I just lost it off my email. There I go, I got it back. But the presentation about how the housing market's going up and down and everything else. United Way did a survey back in 2013 with paid for it, for 2 universities. 2 different universities went through the whole state of Michigan, by county, by city, by township. They put into the living standards. If you're married, single, divorced, how many kids you got, if you're renting, if you own a house, all the variables could possibly be put into it. What it came out with, when it came out with the report, there was only 1 county in the state of Michigan that was either not living in poverty or on the verge of going to poverty. And it was way up here, way up in the thumb just outside Traverse City. The second report's out in 2018, but I just made a phone call and found out there's been an update. And if you wanted to take, when you leave your time, the website, which I'll pull it back up again, is uwmich.org. And look for the Alice report, because it's called the Alice report. And you can see all these numbers that have gone throughout the state.
Say it again.
How do you spell the Alice report?
It's just Alice report, or Alice. It'll come up on the website, it'll say Alice report, but the website's uwmich.org, Alice, just like AC. Yeah, that's it. There we go. Alice. And that's what they named the report. But it's interesting to see in the report of all the different variables. You can just pull up one town, you can pull up race, you can pull up how many live in a household, rent or church, and it shows you all the numbers. I just wanted to let you guys know that's out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members from the public? Joan? Hi, Joan.
I just want to say thank you. And I was on the commission when Marv brought that up about the 2 commissioners. So I have to agree with Marv. And thank you, Carabelli, because seniors, we have a number of seniors in Warren. And they live in homes. They've sold their homes. And then we have a lot of renters in Warren, lots. So I'm on the master plan for Warren as a citizen. So thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Seeing no members from the public, we'll close that portion and go on to new business. Chair Smith.
Thank you. Just some reminders. This is our 10th anniversary of the Green Schools program. I'm telling you, commissioners, if you haven't been there, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's over 300 people already RSVP'd, educators, teachers from all across the county. It's a Salvador from the DIA will be there. The zoo representatives will be there. And this is just a great opportunity for you to get in. I'll wait till everybody leaves. I'm guessing the commissioners that aren't paying attention aren't coming to the Green Schools program? Yes. I'll see. It's the 27th in the morning. And it's, like I said, we're going to have the zoo people there, Salvador's there. And the staff really put this together nice. It's going to be a very special event. I hope that you can make it, even if it's just for a short time there in the morning. Just stop by. Tomorrow's the window is up for our to nominate someone for our volunteer recognition program. Please reach out, see what you can do. I mean, we have a lot of people, but this is such a great program. Try to find somebody if you haven't already for this award. And the SEMCOG General Assembly is next Thursday, March 22nd, following our full board. It's being held at the Lorenzo Cultural Center. There's a special exhibit. Water Resources Plan of Southeast Michigan. The meeting's in our backyard. I think, it'd be nice if we showed up in a little bit of a mass for it. All right. With that, I am finished with new business.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing no other new business, we need a motion to go into closed session for pending litigations. Moved by Romano, supported by Lanette. Please vote. And the Sergeant of Arms is not here, so Commissioner Romano. Okay, commissioners, we're back in open session.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request from Corp Counsel as stated.
Okay, do we have support for that? Supported by Lanette. Please vote. Item passes. We do need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Drolet, supported by Duge. Please vote for the adjournment. And thanks everybody for your patience. It's been a long meeting.